Chapter 421, The Secretive Plotter 6. This was a book written by the Recorder of Fear. The Recorders of Fear, the very first humans to encounter the outer gods, and the writers who also spread the word on their existences. Exclusive skill, reading comprehension, is activating. Exclusive attribute, scenario interpreter, is activating. I couldn't help but feel my anticipation grow after seeing the book's title. To think, this would be a story regarding the secretive plotter and the most ancient dream. The plotter often brought up this most ancient dream, so I hoped that this could be an important opportunity to learn more about that thing. I didn't even notice that 999 had disappeared by then, all my being focused on reading this book. Exactly 8 hours later, I closed the book's cover, my face one of pure stupefaction. I knew of a perfect expression to describe this sort of book. It's even more boring than Ways of Survival. I had no idea who wrote it, but if this book got published in the various platforms of the 21st century, then I was sure of it tanking as badly as the Ways of Survival. Not only was it boring, it was also quite a hard read too. Just what on earth was it even talking about? However, there was this one thing that I did understand, which was there were 5 great outer gods in the expansive great whole. The living flame that rises up from the east, the master of the sunken island, the calamity of the world in the west, the monarch of the great abyss, the ruler of the northern universe, the king of silver heart, the ruler of the interstellar space in the south, and finally, the great plotter that crawls from the place of nothing. This setup is even cooler than the Ways of Survival. In the context of the things so far, this great plotter moniker seemed to signify the secretive plotter. Actually, there were several interesting parts among the texts related to the plotter himself. A few recorders of fear who had encountered the great plotter came to learn that he was searching for the most ancient dream. Omitted, those lucky recorders were able to ask the great plotter about the identity of the most ancient dream. It is the beginning of this universe and the master of the gigantic cogwheel, my oldest mortal enemy and my parent, and the one who decides the end of everything. The few recorders of fear managed to see the great plotter's expression the moment those words were spoken, and they fainted right away. After waking up, they could no longer remember who they were anymore. Records written by a bunch of people who couldn't even remember themselves. Was that why the author of this book was simply stated as a recorder of fear instead? I wanted to read more about either the great plotter or the most ancient dream, but the majority of the book didn't contain records of those two, but rather a collection of boring anecdotes related to the general overview of the outer gods instead. Even the plot development was all over the place. Quite often, a story would end abruptly without warning just as it was getting interesting, or the sequence of events would be jumbled up even within the anecdote itself, and made it utterly impossible to make heads or tails of it. I wasn't just talking about one story here, but every single one of them, so I just couldn't get immersed within the book at all. What an interesting story. It was none other than Simulation who decided to butt in. Which part was interesting to you? This book has been deliberately engineered this way. Are you saying that it was written deliberately to be boring? The message this story wishes to convey is quite clear. If the author wanted to convey a message, then he should have written it in a way that others could understand. It's written with the idea that those who can't understand it will not. Pardon. I thought I heard a light sigh, and then tiny sparks danced in front of my eyes. The power leaking out from the fourth wall flipped through the pages of the book and began extracting several paragraphs. And once those seemingly disparate paragraphs, taken from different short stories, were connected, they formed the following lines of texts. Emotions passed down from the distant, remote universe. That is the flow of the ancient times that this writer could never follow after. We were terrified. They were like monsters from a universe we couldn't recognize. This fear didn't stem from what we could predict. This was pure terror, emanating from those that we could never understand. With great difficulty, we assigned names to each of those terrors. We wanted to pretend that, by assigning names to the creatures of the unknown, we'd be able to understand them. Only now did it feel like the message this book wished to convey was revealing itself. Of course, whether our attempt has any meaning or not, only they can decide. After reading that resignation-filled paragraph, I thought I could see why the outer gods ridiculed these recorders of fear so much. All those modifiers attached to them, strictly speaking, didn't reflect their original essence. If you, the reader, meet them someday, remember this. The one who stares into the abyss will have no choice but to either go mad or become the abyss itself. Having finished my second read-through, I closed the book while feeling despondent. I've gained pretty much nothing here. In the end, there was only one thing I got to figure out from this book. Outer gods are unfathomable creatures. Those were some pretty irresponsible words, that's for sure. Such words could be applied to just about anybody, not only to the outer gods, now couldn't they? Yu Yonghyuk is an unfathomable creature. Han Soo-young is an unfathomable creature. You could say something like that, and it'd still fit the context. Even if it was not an outer god, it was true that we couldn't fully understand each other. We might feel like we could, but that was nothing more than a momentary delusion on our part. Some time ago, I had a conversation with Jang Ha-young regarding this topic. The devourer of dreams, silently listening to my thoughts, began cackling away. You're correct. That's the message this book wishes to convey. In the end, we are all simply outer gods to each other. I put the book down and looked outside the window. It was circular-shaped, just like the circular room it was in. Sunlight poured in faintly. I spotted the outer gods, enjoying the sunbath in between the forest's dense foliage. Some of them discovered me and waved their tentacles about. As if I was looking at a scary scene from a fairy tale or something, I continued to stare at those tentacles. It could very well be that their outer appearance didn't reflect their true nature. Now that I took a closer look, their movements seemed to be rather graceful too. Only those who reach out can discover the truth. Maybe there was no need for me to read that book from the get-go. Well, outer gods were everywhere in this place, weren't they? I sneakily observed my surroundings for a bit, before activating miniaturization to slip outside the window. I floated up and approached one of the outer gods. It also extended its tentacle towards me. I didn't sense hostility behind that action. I don't care if you read it. Even after the fourth wall warned me, I still reached out towards that tentacle. I always regretted about something in my life. However, my regret over the things I hadn't done was way bigger than for those that I did do. Exclusive skill, reading comprehension, is activating. The very last scenario of this star stream was a great war against the outer gods. And through that war, the outer gods would disappear from this world. They were the only creatures in the ways of survival, without any detailed explanation. I wanted to ask them just where they came from. Ask them for what purpose they were fighting against the star stream. Not even once during the original story did the outer gods reply to those questions. They only roared on or spat out incomprehensible utterances and fought against the constellations. That was all. Tsuchachachachu. The fourth wall is warning you. I grasped the outer god's tentacle. As if it was responding to my touch, the tentacle wrapped around my hand like a tree's vine. The recorder of fear said this. They said that the outer gods were unfathomable, unexplainable existences. They said that no one knew where they came from or what their real identity was. They could be right. My current actions might be completely meaningless. We might end up fighting each other later, like how it was in the original storyline, and bring forth the wretched destruction and ruination to all. Suddenly, my surroundings seemed to be blanketed by a slow-moving melody. Under the brilliant sunlight, outer gods were, one by one, bowing their heads in my direction. Fable, the one who is loved by all, has begun its storytelling. Tiny flowers began blooming on the vines created by the outer gods, as if they were giving me their precious hidden something. Fragrance wafted out from those flowers, soon becoming lyrics to a song, and afterwards it formed a story. Captain, it was a fragment of a very old memory. Yu Yonghyok SSI. I listened to those voices like an entranced man. They belonged to different people, but I could accurately guess the owners of those voices with my eyes closed. I had been thinking about this for a long while. If the secretive plotter was Yu Yong-hyuk from the original story, and just like what he had shown me, if the countless world lines of the ways of survival existed out there then, the innumerable failed stories within those regression turns, just where would they have ended up in? In the next life, without a doubt. Even if you regress many more times, I'll always accompany you, Captain. The surging waves of memories swept me up in an instant. These memories lacked any obvious starting point, and they were not consistently linked to each other, either. However, I was able to follow them, as if I was connecting the constellations that couldn't be connected previously. Perhaps only I was able to connect them in this world. And in that moment I understood. I understood what the outer God was, why Yu Yong-hyuk from the original story had to become one willingly, and why he had no choice but to become the secretive plotter. The story of pain that went on for tens of thousands, hundreds, maybe even for millions of years. Stories discarded by the world line and couldn't be acknowledged as fables, and the fragments of fables that became the subconsciousness of the worlds, drifting around in the universe and ruminating on the ancient memories. Finally, the voices of those that were not saved. Ulu. Branches of the outer God, enveloping my surroundings like a garden, began expanding. I couldn't take my eyes off these memories, even though it felt as if I'd asphyxiate from the crashing waves of them. Please remember us. I grabbed hold of the fables crumbling away at my touch and began sobbing. These were simply far too precious, and I felt uncontrollable sorrow now that no one remembered them. I could neither understand or change this. All I could do, whether it was back then or now, was to simply read them. Outer gods began screeching out all at the same time. Yanwis, 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 Yanwis. Warju, 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 Warju. The vines began tightening around me. I heard sobbing noises coming from the outer gods. It sounded like they were happy, or maybe sad. It was the ancient cry resonating from the distant other side of the universe. Tal dy not to do it. Outer gods rushing towards me soon formed a dense, impenetrable forest. Vines grew and grew, choking me harder and tighter as if to swallow me whole. As if they wanted to accept me as one of them. As if they wanted me to join them and stay forever. I somehow managed to regain my wits and struggled hard to get out of there while pushing the vines away. Unfortunately, the more I did that, the tighter their restrictions became. Don't Geo. How come? I couldn't afford to get devoured here. If I really wanted what's best for them, then I must not faint here. Can't Geo. Even before I could unsheathe the unbreakable faith, both of my arms were sealed off. Just as I was about to get helplessly dragged into the darkness of the vines, blinding rays of light split them apart. It was a mini heaven-shaking sword, visible under the faint sunlight. I raised my head to find the K-Coma Yu Yong-hyuk number 999 glaring at me. You bastard, what have you done? Episode 79, The Secretive Plotter 6 Fin. Chapter 422, Episode 79, The Secretive Plotter 7. Just what the hell happened back there? Baehyung hung his head low after hearing Han Soo-young's words. You were busy talking a big game, but then we got refused entry at the door. Oi Dakibai, will you say something already? Well, that is, Fu. In the end, the Kim Dokya company couldn't go to the final scenario and had to return to Earth. The reason? Their qualification is insufficient. It seems that the great Dokibus were behind this. You think everything will be fine after saying that. What will you do about our wasted time, dude? I'll compensate you with suitable rewards, so please, stop grilling me. While the grumbling Bihyung was rummaging through his pockets, Han Soo-young sighed deeply and took a look at her companions. They had somehow returned to Earth after going through all sorts of crazy ups and downs. Predictably, none of them were themselves at the moment. He might have died for real this time. I'm sorry, Hyung. I wasn't qualified because I didn't do the contract. Yigil-yong had been muttering some indescribable things to himself while crouching over there, while Shin Yu-seung had her eyes closed, and both of her index fingers were pressed to her temples as if she was meditating or some such. Meanwhile, Yi Jai-hai and Jiang Hui-won had taken Yi Hyun-seong to Aileen at the industrial complex and had vacated the premises for the time being. This place hasn't changed at all. That Ajima didn't even bother to clean the house, did she? Han Soo-young muttered to herself as she patted away the dust on the aged couch. Once upon a time, she, Yu Sang-ah, and Yi Soo-jeong stayed together in this very house, a place where they lived together for 3 years during Kim Dok-ya's absence. Her brief reminiscence was cut short by the doorbell. She utilized the black flame to remotely open the door and smirked to herself. I guess the devil showing up when you talk about her could be a fable as well. It's been a while, Soo-young-ah, said Yi Soo-jeong as she scanned the messy state of the house. She eventually shook her head. You're still the same as before. You should at least ventilate the place. I'll have you know, I've returned only just now, and it's already been so many yay. Han Soo-young flinched when she got that far. She might have spent dozens of years in the Isle of Reincarnators, but that was time spent within the island itself. She couldn't really tell exactly how long it had been on the outside. Yi Soo-jeong opened all the windows in the house with a simple flick of her hand and sent away all the stuffy dust outside. Her eyes remained fixed on the group sagging on the floor in the meantime. Han Soo-young sneakily blocked the older woman's view towards them and coughed to clear her throat before asking a question. By any chance, did Jiang Hui-won tell you already? Tell me what? Han Soo-young lightly bit her lip. She wasn't sure how to explain this situation. Well, you can see that Kim Dok-ya isn't here. That's true. I learned of it just now, too. She thought that maybe she shouldn't have brought it up, but it was spilt milk already. Han Soo-young squeezed her eyes shut and spoke. The reason why he's not here, it's me, Yu Young-hyuk and Jiang Hui-won. We all wanted to save your son and tried to go with the soul's one big hit, but... Please get to the main point. NG, actually Ajima, your son's gone to some place with someone, but that place is... Are you perchance speaking of that? Han Soo-young followed Yi Soo-jeong's pointing finger and turned her head. The TV mounted on the wall was playing a news footage. The scene on the screen showed a man wearing a white coat floating in the jet-black sky, with Kim Dok-ya dangling off that man's arm. Breaking news, Kim Dok-ya Company's president kidnapped. Han Soo-young's jaw dropped to the floor as she muttered softly, "What the heck is that?" For some unfathomable reason, the Earth's media had found out about that event. Yi Soo-jeong and her rather relaxed expression stared at the screen for a little while, then she nodded her head. That boy, he's still so popular. Ajima, don't you get that it's a pretty serious problem? But he looks like Yu Young-hyuk-gun, so what can be a serious problem? TL note at the end. Because that's not the Yu Young-hyuk, that's the problem. Han Soo-young spat out a groan. But then, the TV screen suddenly rewound itself back, and the exact same footage played out again. Breaking news, Kim Dok-ya Company's president kidnapped. She looked around wondering what was going on here, only to discover the stupefied Yu Young-hyuk continually poking the TV remote. He rewound the footage several times and repeated it over and over again. Han Soo-young asked him, "Hey, are you all right? You won't regress even if you rewind that, you know. Did you even forget how to go back now?" He didn't even pretend to hear her. His eyes burned scarily as if he wanted to engrave the appearance of the secretive plotter in them. The status of the regressor who refused to accept his defeat oozed out from him and made the air in the living room rather stuffy and hot. Han Soo-young spat out an even greater groan. Damn it, just who the heck distributed that footage? Hum. She turned her head yet again to find Bihyung this time, coughing to clear his throat. "You haven't left yet. Here's your reward." Now that she thought about it, she had forgotten all about the reward payout. She extended her hand out, and the Dakibai's small hand placed 500 coins on her palm. "Are you messing with me?" Well, the thing is, the financial state of the Bureau's Seoul branch is a bit strained lately, you see. And what with all these many things that require our attention, it's like. Baehyung whistled while glancing at the other side of the sky. The Seoul's sky that should have been clear was now dyed in the ominous colors of crimson and yellow. There were probability sparks lashing down like lightning bolts, as well as the pitch-black great hole swirling around viciously. Han Soo-young frowned deeply and asked, "Did something happen to Seoul?" "The skis have been like that for a while now." This city was no longer the location for the main scenario. But if the apocalyptic phenomena were still persisting like that, it's because of the apocalypse dragon. Baehyung looked at the sky with a bitter expression, pulled out a lengthy smoking pipe from his inner pocket and mouthed it. Perhaps she found that sight unacceptable. Han Soo-young snatched the pipe away and yelled at the Dakibai. "What are you talking about? Why does the apocalypse dragon's effect reach this far?" "You do know. I thought Kim Dakya would have told you already." "That idiot never tells us the most important information." Baehyung pulled out a second smoking pipe, looking rather unperturbed, and spoke while lighting it up. "The revival of the apocalypse dragon is the first button of the great annihilation for all of us. You can think of it as the world line now rushing towards its end with that thing wide awake. This was why I told you that we need to hurry to the final scenario." "What will happen if we don't get to the final scenario?" "As the word implies, it's the apocalypse. You, me, this world." That composed declaration prompted the dumbfounded Han Soo-young to sharply shoot back. "What the heck? What is even? What's the point of this final scenario when the whole world is about to be destroyed? Why did you people even create such a scenario in the first place?" The Great Annihilation is not a scenario planned out by the Dakibus. It's simply meant to be. And because the annihilation is real, the final scenario has gained its purpose at last. Baehyung looked up at the distant skis with an expression of remorse. He saw the movements of a group of stars, hurriedly trying to get to some place. Stars of the heavens were getting further away like shooting stars. "Ovuvio. Aelia." The outer gods unleashed their jet-black statuses, dyeing the entirety of the Engai's forest in pure darkness. The K-Koma Yu Younghyok's managed to extract me from the vines and quickly stood all around me. The K-Koma number 999 spoke up first. "Protect Kim Dakya." "I told all of you this before, didn't I? I knew he would cause a problem." "Indeed, we should have killed him the first time we saw him." Even though they spat out some seriously scary words, all of the mini Yu Younghyok's continued to hold their heaven-shaking swords firmly and didn't lower their guards. They sliced and cut the approaching tentacles and advanced forward little by little. Maybe because it was directly after witnessing something truly shocking, my entire body seemed to be wrapped in this cold air. The K-Koma number 999 took off his black coat and placed it over my shoulders. "I only remember telling you to read a book, so why did you have to provoke them?" I wasn't sure what I could say back to him here. 999's eyes trembled. "You fool. Owuvu." The howling outer god's true voice reverberated heavily in the sky. Insects within the forest vomited out their bodily fluids and died, while some of the gods even began fighting among themselves, too. 999 spoke in a grave tone of voice. "These beings have not been understood for a very long time, and you just had to get involved." Outer gods were flooding into where we were. "Give it home, give it home, give it home, give it home. Kimdokcha, 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 Kimdokcha." What was even more concerning, though, was the fact that not all outer gods carried the same sentiments as their peers. A few of the higher-ranked ones, after sensing my presence, began to exude unfiltered animosity in my way. "Stin-kai and G-Cons tell Asian has low oak down on us. Kai ll him get our id of him." No foe are giving even, if yo are plo teeters sent. Step aside, members of the Shantak. We will cut you down if you come closer. The K-Koma Yu Younghyok's all unleashed their statuses and resisted, but the outer gods didn't back down at all. They approached closer one step at a time, and while emitting dizzying statuses themselves, cried out in a loud roar. O PL Otter, we can no lo endure wide. F or ho W long do we ne to wide. The woe RLDL and ease end is ap pro aching. I knew very well what they were talking about. The world line's end. Even these guys, as expected, were fully conscious of the final scenario. Th's woe RLD mu sin under R stand us. Step aside. The tentacles closing in grew even more ferocious. Eventually, their statuses became simply too much for the K-Koma Yu Younghyok's to deal with, but then the forest parted ways, and he made his entrance. He walked forward while crossing the tentacles that none of us could block. Each of his steps contained the solitude of indescribable eternity, as well as the entirety of the 1,863 lives he had experienced. Once upon a time, his name was Yu Younghyok, but now he was the secretive plotter, a man who knew of every world-line sorrow. Outer gods knelt down in front of that absolute, overwhelming nobleness. Oh, the GREPL Otter. However, not all of them did. There were some gods who didn't want to bend their opinions even when subjected to the intense pain of their existences turning into nothingness. Oh, the GREPL Otter, we can no lo endure wide. The ones no one could ever understand were wailing in sorrow. They raged on, and they mourned. Even then, their rage and sorrow were not understood. They didn't belong to this world line, and they couldn't be understood through the existing fables. One needed to work really hard to understand their rage, their sorrow, and their grief. We want to be understood. We w antebek om fables. Stories that needed one to work hard to understand could never be fables. Stories that needed one to throw oneself deeply in first couldn't be consumed. The secretive plotter opened his lips. You will not be understood. He looked at each and every one of them with subtle gazes, studied them, and gifted them with the cruel reality. That is because this star stream has labeled all of you terrors. Because this world has described you all as chaos that destroys the order, as calamities that could never be understood. That is why. It was then I finally understood why the secretive plotter has chosen to side with these creatures. Why would a person who knows the end of everything repeat the same story over again? When I thought about it, the answer was a rather simple one. That's because he didn't like the end he witnessed. In the original story, Yu Younghyok and Constellations defeated the outer gods together. That's how he got to the end of the scenarios and destroyed the star stream. You will never shine in the sky like the constellations, nor can you become the main actors of this world. As long as the star stream exists, you will all remain forever as outer gods. However, he didn't find what he wanted, and now, after becoming the secretive plotter, Yu Younghyok was stepping up to the battlefield once more. Soon the war of annihilation will commence. The end of everything will soon begin, where stars will fall, worlds will collapse, and all fables will be extinguished. I spotted the eyes of the secretive plotter looking at me from afar. The eye of Sage spun around within his pitch-black iris. Oh, the great plotter! Oh, Uvu! According to the plot of the original story, these creatures would meet with defeat. For the sake of the conclusion Kim Dokya wishes for, these beings simply had to be defeated. Star Stream would be destroyed, while the stars of the heavens and the solitary gods would die with no one to remember them. The defeated would die extremely sorrowful deaths, while the victors would not get to bask in their victory. I began walking towards the secretive plotter. Kim Dokya. I heard 999 call out to me, but I didn't look back. I undid the miniaturization, and my eye level changed rapidly. The black coat 999 placed on my shoulders wavered along with every step I took. Star Stream's probability is now shifting. Stream of the great main scenario is now dwelling in you. Past the canopy of the vine-covered forest, the sea of stars of the star stream could be seen. On one side of the sky, stars were emitting bright light, while on the other side, ominous-looking galaxies alongside the great hole were quietly flowing about. Half of it light, while the other half darkness. Soon the final war would begin, and most likely I would have to stand on one of the sides to witness the end of the world. Your second modifier has been decided. A small star flickered on the far side of the sky. I stared at it for the longest time before slowly reverting my gaze back to the ground. The outer gods were now looking at me. I returned their gazes and finally chose the side I'd stand. Your second modifier is the Watcher of the Light and Darkness. Episode 79, The Secretive Plotter 7 Fin. TL, the gun bit at the end of a person's name isn't a literal gun. It's exactly the same thing as Japanese kun, BTW. Not many Koreans use it though, at least not that I've seen. Chapter 423, Our Greatest Ally 1. Kill him. Kimdokcha, 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 Kimdokcha. I began walking towards the outer gods. The secretive plotter didn't try to stop me. It was as if he was telling me to try anything I want. I took another step forward. The movements of the vines grew even more vicious. They extended out in an instant and grabbed both of my arms. Henoses, 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 Henoses. Right, I do know you. I nodded my head towards them. Butho, 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 Buth. But how? I didn't know how to answer that question. When I failed to provide an answer, the animosity directed at me by the vines grew even heavier. Eventually, one of the tentacles wavering around flew in and pierced my shoulder. It hurt like crazy, but the true pain didn't come from the injured body part. I could hear someone's voice coming from the end of that tentacle. I don't want to die. Was it an illusion? For a moment there, the tentacle piercing my shoulder looked like a sword. Not just any, but the twin dragon sword, and I knew the owner of this sword well. I don't want it to end like this. Yijai was crying. I belatedly reached out, but her crying face had disappeared by then. Her face slowly vanished, crumbling into debris, and only the short, aimless voice fragments lingered on. The nameless ones. I know. I suppressed the pain and spoke up. And then, yet another tentacle flew in towards me. The K-Coma Yu Younghyok number 999 shouted out. As the bloody noise of my flesh being pierced resounded out, another voice entered my head. Yu Younghyok SSI, which number Yihyeonseong am I? The incarnation of steel, sturdier than anyone in this world. Just like before, Yihyeonseong's figure scattered like bubbles as I reached out. My hand wandered the empty air, and his voice came to me from beyond the void. Truly, is there an end to these scenarios? Yes, there is. I bit my lip and continued to walk forward. One step and then another one. Every time I did, fragments of the Forgotten World line talked to me. I believed we could carry on for a little while longer. Yisial dying with her heart penetrated. I don't resent you. Still, there is one thing I do regret. Shin Yuseung, smiling faintly as she scattered away. You're so dumb. Captain, I'm Kim Namwon. You think I'll kick the bucket here? I won't die. I will definitely not die. I'll survive and survive again to see the next scenario. For sure, the next scenario ... Kim Namwon, passing on with his eyes still open. Memories from the regression turned that I couldn't even begin to guess. These were simply byproducts of the failed world lines, a collection of memories with no meaning to them anymore. The precious something that Yu Younghyok had been protecting even at the cost of becoming the secretive plotter. I ain't going to be your ally in the next turn, so don't come looking for me. Gong Pildu. Looks like you'll be left alone again, Yu Younghyok. Anna Croft. It'd been an honor to fight alongside you, conquering king. Selena Kim. Even the memories of those who used to be constellations fleeted past me. The Goryeo's #1 swordsman, Chiak Junjeong. the god of wine and ecstasy, Dionysus. I stopped walking because of the sensation of the fierce flames from my right side. The tentacle holding onto my arm burned as it spoke to me. I can still burn them some more. Uriel. I nodded my head and replied, I know. Outer gods are now looking at you. I knew, but I couldn't understand. Because I wasn't them. And that was why all I could say to them were these words. This story isn't over yet. Outer gods are paying attention to your words. There are still some things left to be told, right? I looked up at the outer gods. These beings, portrayed always as either cephalopods or tentacled monsters, creatures cursed with the most disgusting appearances by the world line because they were not needed by it. I spoke to them, I'll tell your story. Right away, the surroundings were swept up in the frenzied storm winds. Really. What diamian, what diamian, what diamian. And from the other side, vicious animosity rained down on me. Lies. Yoth inc. Wyll fall for the Seacon teaming. Upper-grade gods began, emitting their auras at me. I swallowed back the blood rising up in my throat and stared at them. I knew why they were reacting so violently like this. Because they had been continually used by the scenario until now. Dukeki bis sa the Sami Thing. It was the Bureau that learned of their existences first and had used them. The storytellers who, under the pretext of incorporating them into the scenarios, exploited their powers and probability and turned them into the evil of this world. I spoke up with my true voice. I'm not a Dakibai. Or a constellation. I'm not affiliated with the Bureau, nor am I a collaborator of Dakibus. All constellations are the Sami. Those words stabbed and dug into my chest like a dagger. They were right. I was also just another constellation who craved after fables and leered on at their stories. However, because I was a constellation, I got to know about something important as well. You will all definitely be destroyed when the final war commences. Doesn't matter how you fight, you will still end up losing. How and soul end. Yoka until th at without phi ght ing phi rst. No need, I already know. I've already seen all the world lines where you fight. I do not wish to see you die like that this time around. The branches of the outer gods trembled from my words. What do I owe me in? You say that you wish to be understood. In that case, I'll make you into a fable. Right at that moment, the surrounding space-time distorted. Tentacles were trembling ever so imperceptibly. I sensed that vibration and continued on. I'll ensure that you can stand on equal terms with the stars in the sky. What I'm saying is that I'll create a fable where no one will misunderstand you or despise you. The unrest slowly spread out. A large current of air swept across the Engai's forest, as if it was the sign of an incoming storm. I didn't miss this opening and spoke again. There is no reason for the final war to start. There is no need for you to remain as star streams evil. Sh up. The lick ease of Yo to raise to. In the end, I did vomit out some blood. Upper-grade ostracized gods capable of destroying my body and killing my consciousness completely were descending down on me. Kimdikjadinger. Daunt attack, daunt attack, daunt attack. Vines wrapped tightly around me. The nameless ones were protecting me from the auras of the powerful upper-grade outer gods. The tick ones that don t even po ssc egos. Kugagagugu. Just one true voice, and the dozens of branches were torn off. Even though they emitted painful screams, the smaller outer gods protected me. And then, the K-Koma Yu Younghyok stepped in front of me as well. The secretive plotter didn't try to stop them or dissuade them. He simply watched on as if he was not allowed to interfere with the decision-making process this time. Just as the statuses of the upper-grade gods reached the critical point. You speak of some amusing things. Someone suddenly spoke up. A creature was walking out from a portal spinning around ominously. Oh, pitiful illegitimate children of the world line, he speaks of the truth. And why oh, Ari? You shall become a fable once more and be a part of the story within the stream of stars. That is, as long as that unfortunate constellation is willing to sacrifice himself for your sakes. It was an old man with a very small stature, yet the shadow he cast was unimaginably large. There were two lumps shaking about on the cheeks of the giant shadow. Deville of Horizon. I too knew of the race that old man belonged to. Indeed, I had a deal with one of them when I went to the demon world for the first time. However, this creature right before my eyes was on another dimension compared to the Winnie I met back then. There were countless Winnies in this world, but there could only be one with two lumps among them. Oh, the master of the ancient library. I raised my head to find the Winnie King staring at me with eyes filled with malicious interest. Are you truly planning to become the star stream enemy for the sake of these discarded waste? I could see the circular-shaped exit open up in the distant forest, and behind me, many outer gods had come to see me off. Their tentacles danced side to side like a forest of gigantic reeds. Kimdokcha, Kimdokcha, Kimdokcha. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Most of them possessed similar outer appearances, but even then, I could just about tell them apart. That guy over to the left side was the kind-hearted one possessing a tiny little bit of Shin Yu-seung's memories from the 12th turn. The one on the far right, meanwhile, was blessed with a fair amount of 44th Kim Nam ones. Hang on, didn't that guy stab me in the thigh earlier? There is no need to go this far, said the K-Coma Yu Young-hyuk number 999, riding on my shoulder. The deal with the Wenny King is as absolute as they come. If you do this, then you will definitely. I won't die, so don't worry. By the way, are you planning to come with me? 999 formed an unhappy expression after hearing my question. As per our agreement, I'm tasked with monitoring you. It become troublesome for us if you get in touch with the members of Kim Dokya Company and come up with an underhanded scheme. But I even did the existence pledge, saying that I won't contact them. Seriously, you Young-hyoks can be too much sometimes. The first agreement I made with the Wenny King, as well as the outer gods, was that I'd not contact the Kim Dokya Company, nor reveal my identity to them. And the second agreement was, your actions have triggered a new scenario to be created in the star stream. Hidden scenario has been generated. I chuckled hollowly as I read the scenario messages. Even things like this became a scenario, as expected of the star stream, then. But then again, this world wanted to create a story out of its own destruction, so it shouldn't that surprising, really. Hidden scenario, verifying agreement. Type hidden. Difficulty. Clear condition. Introduce outer gods to the star stream, main great fable. However, they must not be introduced in the existing role of outer gods as before. Time limit, 100 days. Reward outer gods' trust. Failure, you will lose all of your memories and transform into an outer god. Give outer gods a role that wasn't about being outer gods. Such a scenario didn't exist anywhere in the original story. A scenario acquired after persuading the outer gods and making a deal with the Wenny King. If I failed it, then I'd be transformed into an outer god like them. This was the second condition of the agreement I made with the Wenny King. However, succeeding in this scenario will ensure that outer gods wouldn't be destroyed. I looked at the exit of the Engai's forest and did a light stretching exercise. 999 asked me, perhaps finding me rather untrustworthy. Where are you planning to go now? There shouldn't be any scenario with a great fable remaining by now. He was right. Most of the great fables existing in Star Stream had come to their conclusions by now. However, if my memory served me correctly, then one powerful great fable should still remain. I pretended to ask 999 in passing. By the way, do you also know about the stories from the 1863rd turn? I've heard about it from the great plotter. If you guys enter the final war like this, then you'll definitely lose. And even if you somehow miraculously win, not many of you will end up surviving. Are you trying to curse us? No, I'm only stating the truth. No matter how powerful the faction of the secretive plotter and the outer gods was, they still couldn't fight against the entire star stream. Whatever the case might have been, the current rulers of this universe were the star streams, nebulas, and the stinking bureau. The best way to avoid war is to inform the other side that they would lose a lot by starting one in the first place. What are you implying? Do you know which constellation slaughtered the most number of outer gods in the final war? 999 carefully combed through his memories after hearing my question and made his reply, although his expression indicated that his pride had been wounded just a little bit. No, I do not. The status he possesses is so strong that normally he has to divide himself into several pieces. Well, if I'm to describe him, he'd be pretty similar to the secretive plotter. Similar to the great plotter. That's right. If only that guy didn't stand on the side of the star stream, if only he didn't perform the suicidal attack on the tens of thousands of ostracized gods, the course of the 1863rd turn would have changed by a lot. My words caused 999's eyes to tremble for the first time. It seemed that he had finally realized the identity of the constellation I was talking about. Could it be the constellation who sacrificed himself to take out countless other gods during the ways of survival's final war? There was only one being capable of doing that. I grinned and spoke. You're right. We're going to go where he is and make him our ally. Episode 80. Our greatest ally, one Finn. Chapter 424. Episode 80. Our greatest ally, 2. A white figure of a person rose up in the pitch-black darkness. Yu Yonghyuk swung his sword several times at this figure, from the breaking the sky thunder sword, even to the shooting star slash. However, not one of his sword skills managed to even touch the enemy's shadow. Right after that, fables collided. Jolted awake now, he opened his eyes while gasping out a pained moan. He was sitting inside the darkened training dojo, the sun having set already. A lengthy shadow was looking down on him. It was the breaking the sky sword saint. Was he really strong? His master bent her back to settle down, her eyes filled with concern towards her disciple. Yu Yonghyuk bit his lip and replied, he was. By how much? Even after unlocking the Transcendence level 5, I couldn't win against him. The 5th level of Transcendence was the absolute limit that the current Yu Yonghyuk had reached. The breaking the sky saint quietly observed him for a little while before opening her lips. When you break past the Transcendence's 6th level, you'll no longer be bound by the breaking the sky swordsmanship's gender requirements. Originally, the breaking the sky swordsmanship was a martial technique designed for women. But as was the case with every martial technique out there, once one stepped past a certain level, they would reach the stage of breaking beyond boundaries. The process of endlessly exceeding many boundaries was the part of a transcender's training regime. There is no guarantee of defeating him, even if I reach the 6th level. Why do you think that? He is me. For the first time ever, Yu Yonghyuk's always confident voice contained a faint trace of fear. That man, he's none other than me who has regressed over 1863rd times. How can I defeat someone like that? It was a clear sign of despair. The moment he stood face to face with the secretive plotter, he witnessed a wall he couldn't overcome no matter what he tried. There was the gap of time between them that could never be bridged by the mere third-turn regression. His enemy had already surpassed that lengthy period of time to enter this world line. The Sword Saint spoke, he is not you. He is also Yu Yonghyuk. He has not tread on the same path as you have, and he'll not do so in the future either. As if she wanted to wipe away the despair rooted in her disciple's eyes, her large hand gently stroked his cheek. She spoke again. It's not the level of transcendence you have reached, but which fables you have acquired that's the most important part. You may be only a little chick who has regressed 3 times, but you know of fables that he doesn't. Yu Yonghyuk heard those words and looked down at his fist. It was a fist that failed to reach the secretive plotter. He slowly unfurled his hand, and fables leaked out from there. Fables that he had acquired himself, fables that the secretive plotter didn't know, and the path of transcendence is different for everyone, so do not try to chase after him, and search for the path only you can tread. He wordlessly clenched his fist tightly, as if he didn't want to permit any of the fables to leave him. Have you heard any new information, Master? The Breaking the Sky Saint shook her head. It had been over a week since Kim Dokya's disappearance. Unfortunately, neither his whereabouts nor the location of the secretive plotter had been discovered until now. You say that he crossed over from another world line. That's correct. I do not know what his aim is, but if he bothered to enter this world line at this point in time, then it's possible that his goal is somehow related to the final scenario. Yu Young-hyuk agreed with her opinion. In other words, there was a good chance that he'd encounter the secretive plotter again by going to the location of the final scenario. However, the current situation is that the Kim Dokya company can't enter the final scenario. He nodded his head. Fables you have acquired are insufficient to approve your participation in the final scenario. On that day they failed to enter the final scenario. The Bureau one-sidedly sent that communique in their direction. However, he thought that made some sense, because not only were they a newly created nebula, the number of fables they managed to acquire was also rather small as well. However, one couldn't strictly argue that when taking into consideration the grade of the fables they had acquired. Especially so with the season of light and darkness, the great fable they earned the last time that would be extremely hard to find its equal anywhere in the star stream. Where is the representative of your nebula? In the end, everything boiled down to Kim Dokya's absence. After the person possessing the highest percentage of the nebula's fable shares left the group, the aggregate amount of fables for the whole nebula had become simply too inadequate. It was unknown what Yu Young-hyuk was thinking to himself as he maintained his silence. And how long went by like that? He slowly raised himself up off the floor, sheathed the dark heavenly demon sword, and although still unsteady on his feet, got ready to leave. Where are you planning to go? I'm leaving to acquire a new great fable, Master. He needed to acquire the qualification to get to the final scenario, even without Kim Dokya's shares. Kim Dokya Company was neither that fool's private army nor his underlings. This group needed to be able to protect themselves without him around, and even if they end up losing him somehow. They needed to be capable enough to clear the final scenario. But Bu murmured in despondency from somewhere in the empty air. Yu Young-hyuk silently stared at her for a little while, before activating the Eye of Sage, to sift through the information he possessed in his head. There weren't that many locations left at this point in time where he could acquire a great fable. When flipping that statement around, it also meant that the remaining fables would be that much more powerful than others. He had already acquired one powerful great fable called the Season of Light and Darkness. If he managed to earn that fable on top of this, then it might be possible to fight against the secretive plotter once more. The Breaking the Sky Sword Saint watched Yu Young-hyuk walk away and asked him, "Are you planning to go alone?" "I've always been alone, Master. But that path is the one already tread by the other party." His master's words caused Yu Young-hyuk's figure to flinch. In the next moment, a voice came out from beyond the walls of the training hall. "Hey Yu Young-hyuk, where are you? We gotta get going now." With the blinding light behind them, the members of Kim Dokya Company opened the door and rushed inside the dojo. Shin Yuseung, Yigilyeong, Yijihai, and Han Suyeong. It was unknown since when they got ready to leave, but regardless, everyone from the nebula was here. The Breaking the Sky Sword Saint spoke again. "They are precisely your fable now, Young-hyuk. Something that the secretive plotter did not possess." Yu Young-hyuk dazedly looked back at his master, and she addressed him again. "You don't have to fight alone in this regression turn." The location of the new great fable was 4 days away. It would have been so much quicker to get there by borrowing the powers of the Dakibus, but the current situation didn't permit that. You cannot borrow the powers of Dakibus you are friendly with. You must never reveal the truth that you're Kim Dakya. All thanks to the stinking agreement I had with the Weni King. Because of it, I couldn't enter BU's channel or send word of my well-being to the Kim Dakya company. In the end, I had no choice but to personally drive the X-grade Ferragini I purchased from the mass production type maker to the destination. The K-Koma Yu Young-hyuk number 999, polishing his heaven-shaking sword atop my shoulder, grumbled softly, "Your driving sucks." "Then why don't you drive? By the way, you're not planning to stick to that appearance now, are you?" Without a doubt, we'd run into constellations that will recognize us once we entered the scenario location. The existence of the K-Koma Yu Young-hyuk was just too eye-catching. Well, Yu Young-hyuk himself was just too famous by now, so. Indeed, I am too inconspicuous like this. 999 seemed to be pondering something. His body suddenly jolted a bit before a pow. Noise resounded out and he transformed into a Murim dumpling. I was shocked silly by this event, but 999 sounded utterly disinterested as he addressed me. "This should be fine." "Hey, you. Carrying a dumpling around on my shoulder will be even more eye-catching, you know. Why don't you change your pathetic appearance as well?" Just as the K-Koma Yu Young-hyuk couldn't maintain his original appearance, I too needed to make sure that my identity as Kim Dakya wasn't discovered. The now dumpling-fied Yu Young-hyuk roughly rubbed the dumpling skin all over my face as if he was trying to paint a wall. I sensed the fable on my face change as creaking noises resounded out. How long passed by like that? By the time I opened my eyes, I ended up freaking out by what I saw. 999 spoke to me as I stared dumbfoundedly at the mirror, my eyes blinking non-stop. "It's done." Holy moly, this might not be enough to slap Yu Young-hyuk's cheeks silly, but still. It should be enough to make me ponder whether I should slap him or not, at least. TL note at the end. I rubbed my new statuesque face and muttered to myself, "Can I keep this face forever? If you do, you'll be struck by the storm of probabilities aftermath." As if he had touched something dirty, 999 diligently patted down his dumpling body. Completely disregarding whether he was doing that or not, I continued to stare at the mirror. A long time ago, I absorbed the fable fragment of the Casanova who died during sexual acts and became pretty good-looking for a while, but this was on another scale compared to that. I spoke in an admiring tone of voice. "It's true that the 999th regression turn is amazing. The third turn doesn't have skills like this one, you know." Point 3 turn. "Oh, you didn't know. Yu Young-hyuk in this place is the third turn. And this is the third turn world line too." The K-Koma Yu Young-hyuk number 999 stared deeply at me for a while after hearing those words and asked me a question. "Why do you think that?" "What do you mean, why?" I was about to reply with "because the ways of survival starts off with the third turn, that's why," but stopped. I decided to refine my answer just a bit. "Because the beginning was the third turn, that's why." "But why does it start from the third turn? Don't know how numbers work. The beginning is the 0th turn." He was right. The first chapter of The Ways of Survival started off from Yu Young-hyuk's third turn, but if you get technical about it, then you could say that the story began with his 0th turn. I felt a bit weirded out after thinking like that. Why did I come to Yu Young-hyuk's third turn anyway? I wasn't going to follow the third turn story as it was in the original, so there wouldn't have been a reason for me to start in this particular turn, even if that's where the novel began. I don't know. It's not as if I can figure this out right now anyway. Yu Young-hyuk in this world line said that he was the third turn, so this place is the third regression turn. And the information I confirmed through the character list said so too. But then 999 spoke in a mocking tone. Trusting such information at its face value, how naive. "What?" "Never mind, we've seemed to have arrived." Along with the blinding light, the lengthy dimension tunnel finally came to an end. What appeared next was a giant gate leading to the new scenario's location. I spotted a group of beings waiting to enter in front of the gate. I collected the X-grade Ferrarghini and joined the group. A constellation was manning the entrance to the scenario location, rather than the usual docubus. But that made sense, since the host for this great fable scenario was a nebula. Although it was one of the largest nebulas out there, it had almost no point of contact with me until now. Next, it was a constellation holding a massive three-pronged spear on one hand, while wearing a combination of aged crimson crown and armor set. The domineering status exuding from his entire body attested to the fact that he was a fable-grade constellation, possessing a pretty hefty status. The guardian of Buddhist laws Viewpoint, TL, in Korean and Hanja, Kochungding Chunwang Enus, /Chinese letter Chinese letter Chinese letter Chinese letter. He was one of the 4 heavenly kings that protected the entrance of the heavenly palace, the headquarters of the Nebula Emperor. Next, not too long afterwards, my turn came around. Viewpoint glared at my face intently, as if he wanted to discover anything suspicious on it, and eventually threw out his first question. Your purpose for visiting? I came to participate in the great fable. Your modifier? Obviously, I couldn't use the Demon King of Salvation here. Fortunately, I did have a brand new modifier I received not too long ago. It's the Watcher of Light and Darkness. Episode 80, Our Greatest Ally 2 Finn. TL, slapping XX's cheek, is not a literal act of physical violence, but simply a popular saying in Korea that implies, you're so pretty that it puts the other party to shame. Chapter 425, Our Greatest Ally 3. My words caused a handful of constellations standing behind me to murmur among themselves. I wondered if others had heard of my new modifier already, but fortunately, that didn't seem to be the case. I'm sure the Bureau's nomming division was behind that title. Do they still do that nowadays? I thought there wouldn't be any other modifiers that could exceed the Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, but Tusk, why do young ones these days prefer such modifiers anyway? Well, I guess I can tell what they are complaining about then. Viewpoint completed the simple entry procedure and then stared at my shoulder. What is that dumpling? It's my lunch. How peculiar. A fool showed up with cotton candy yesterday and now we have you. Cotton candy. Next. Much to my relief, Viewpoint let me through without much hassle. You have entered the channel that directs the scenario's location. Right after I went past the gate, I was greeted by the rainbow-colored aura swirling around, followed by the guide message as well as an accompanying video. We welcome you to the world of the Nebula Emperor. Yeah, even the entry video was on another scale. When I blinked, I found myself standing atop a white cloud. It was flying at a fairly decent knock with me as its sole passenger. I looked around and found a handsome, golden-colored monkey flying alongside me. Let's go, friend. The monkey winked at me playfully and performed a somersault in the air while swinging his Rui Bang around. The image in the sky changed and now showed countless Yago creatures rushing towards us. TL note at the end. I knew this was all fake, but still couldn't help but get absorbed by it. The world's most beautiful epic. Because, well, this was the most famous great fable that the Nebula Emperor possessed. That was why. The scene now showed the great sage, heaven's equal son Wukong, fighting against all those Yago creatures, and right behind him, a great army of thousands following in his footsteps. We invite you to experience this grand adventure. The footage came to an end, and I found myself standing on a plaza before I even noticed it. The dumpling on my shoulder spoke up. What a showy salesmanship that was. Stop yapping, you're supposed to be a dumpling, remember. I complained for no reason from the embarrassment I felt after getting all worked up a bit just now. I then slowly took in the surrounding sights and observed the panoramic view of the heavenly palace. The plaza was filled with elegant ancient palaces. The vestige of civilization gleamed brilliantly in the golden hue. Stars among stars had gathered here, and the world created by fables acquired by those stars was now laid out before my eyes. I had been to the bases of other nebulas before, but this would be my first time in a world view with this many people in it. For the time being, I decided to investigate my surroundings a bit more. It was around then that I saw a hologram appearing on one of the electronic boards installed in the plaza. Whereabouts of Nebula Kim Dakya Company's members unknown. They are understood to be participating in a new great fable scenario. The fourth wall is strongly activating. What is the next destination of Kim Dakya Company? It was playing the scene of Yu Young-hyuk and my companions entering a gate emitting blinding light. I stopped walking for a little while and watched them disappear through that light. The fourth wall is activating even stronger than before. Brand new great fable, was it? I could more or less guess what happened there. My companions must be wandering around here and there, searching for a way to acquire a new great fable. Well, after I left the Kim Dakya Company, their share of fables wouldn't have been sufficient enough to let them into the final scenario. I shifted my head to find 999, looking straight at me. I advise you not to make any unwise decisions. I know already, don't you worry. Sure, I desperately wanted to return to my companions right away, but right now, my situation didn't allow me to contact any one of them. It's not for you, but for the sake of your comrades. I know. Even if I forget about the agreement for a second here, the road I'm about to tread was lined with dangerous thorns with no guarantee of walking away alive. If I carelessly contacted them, every one of my companions might fall into life-threatening danger. Will you travel to the great fable scenario location? I nodded my head. Automatic guidance to the scenario progress location will now commence. As expected of a nebula that pursued convenience above all else, my legs actually began running all by themselves. I noticed a few incarnations around me who also started their automatic running thing, sporting the same body posture as me. We all became rather embarrassed and avoided meeting each other's gazes. Automatic guide will now end. The place I arrived at was in front of a giant holographic panel installed to the west of the plaza. There were many constellations and incarnations present here already. I could see golden-colored bronze statues rising up above right next to the sea of crowds. The one taking the centermost spot was a constellation that I knew pretty well. The prisoner of the golden headband, sporting a head full of golden hair and wielding a gigantic Ruyi Jingu Bang. These were the statues of protagonists of the journey to the west, including the great sage, Heaven's equal son Wukong. Not surprisingly, Emperor seemed to be well aware of which story out of their worldview was the most famous of them all. New main scenario is available, and the upcoming scenario was related to that famous story. I accessed the scenario window. Main scenario 94, Journey to the West remake. Type main. Difficulty. Clear condition. Work together with other constellations and or incarnations to create Fable Chamber and remake the Journey to the West. The remade journey will be evaluated in real time by judges as well as audience members. Through the judging criteria which may include popularity, degree of faithfulness to the original, and originality, overall points will be assigned at the end. The fable that manages to acquire the highest number of votes will be judged the winner of the scenario. Time limit. Reward, great fable related to the journey to the west. Goodwill from the Nebula Emperor, 3 million coins. Failure. The copyright to the reconstituted fables will be shared between the Nebula Emperor and the participants. Depending on the judges' votes, you may acquire either a legendary or historical grade fable. A participant may only take on one role, excluding extras. Additional coins will be rewarded according to the rankings. Indeed, Emperor Escale was on another realm altogether, putting up a scenario where you were supposed to dramatize their great fable. If this explanation was correct, then even if one failed to clear the scenario, simply participating in it would let you acquire either a legendary or historical grade fable. Strangely, though, the K-Coma dumpling Yu Young-hyuk spoke in a confused voice, as if he couldn't understand something. Remake the journey to the west. Ah, you didn't come here during your turn, did you? But the turns before yours should have come here before. It's not as if I retain all the memories of my past regressions. Well, it's as the explanation says. If I were to summarize it, then the participants are supposed to pick a role from the journey to the west and act out the story itself. In that case, wouldn't everyone try to pick the role with the most importance? You're right, that's why we have that thing called the Fable Chambers. Fable Chambers. Rather than a verbal answer, I simply pointed to the advertisement boards the constellations had put up here and there, looking for anyone willing to open a Fable Chamber with us. All the roles are still available, with the exception of Sun Wukong, Tang Sanzeng, Sha Wujing, or Zhu Beiji. We even have a scenario writer ready. Let us create a truly enjoyable fable together. The Fable Chamber. Every participant was forced to create one before being allowed to enter the scenario. I see. You're supposed to form a team like that and compete against one another. That's right. Only by doing so will you ensure the diversity of the fable, you see. Diversity. In the end, the real goal of this event is to enhance the impact of Journey to the West. By increasing the number of varied and entertaining versions of the journey in circulation, the strength of the original will grow even greater, and that would, in turn, serve to advertise the position of Emperor too. You're surprisingly smarter than you look. I thought you were a fool. I grinned sheepishly. To be honest, what I uttered just now was nothing more than me quoting what Yu Young-hyuk from the 1287th turn had said. That's when we got to hear the complaints coming from ancient-looking constellations. I simply can't fathom what Emperor is thinking lately. Is this what they mean by the water in the rear of the Yangtze washing away those in the front? Huh. Even if they are trying to go along with the changing times, isn't this tantamount to insulting the original work? It kind of made sense for the ancient constellations to think like that. But what could anyone do about the ever-changing taste of the times? In all honesty, most of the constellations had already adopted to the already changed times anyway. Currently, 5412 chambers are remaking the journey to the west. There were already 5412 of them. Only then did it really hit home that an incredible number of constellations and incarnations had rushed over to this particular great fable. But then again, many constellations must have been feeling the heat after the final scenario had opened up. The great fable related to the journey to the west could very well prove to be their golden ticket, after all. So the problem here is that I can't enter the scenario alone. Meaning I'd have to create Fable Chamber like other constellations and join the scenario. I took a look around my vicinity and spotted an occasional few that had newly opened up their chambers and were recruiting members to fill their quotas. Recruiting a constellation willing to play the Hong Hai-er, the Red Boy, an incarnation of a Fable-grade constellation is also okay. Recruiting the Golden Horned King, accepting only historical grade or higher. Those indicated that the casting for the main characters had been filled already. As I expected, chambers recruiting villains far outnumbered those looking for the main characters. It was all because of the distribution of the Great Fable's shares when they did acquire it later. Well, you'd get a greater share by playing a main character rather than a villain, so it couldn't really be helped. Recruiting the actor for the Yellow Robe Demon. Coin split is 7-3, no Fable shares, we don't care about your status. By the way, it might be just my gut talking here, but this. Recruiting an extra for multiple roles. We don't judge your status, no Fable shares. Every appearance is a guaranteed 1,000 coins. Oyai hang SSI over there, come this side, we'll treat you right. I looked everywhere, but it felt as if there were only con men around this place. I was hopping against hopping, but well, I failed to spot any familiar constellations either. Maybe that was an obvious result, seeing that famous constellations would have already joined fable chambers by now. For the time being, I approached the panel and decided to look at the list of fable chambers first. The list was automatically organized by the rankings. Surprisingly, the highest-ranked chamber belonged to someone even I knew of. The Real Journey to the West. Current number of votes, 8651. Introduction. The previously unknown secrets of the authentic journey to the West will be revealed. There are no more open spots available. Cider Regression System, TL note at the end. Current ranking first. If my memory served me correctly, then this fable chamber should belong to the Nebula Emperor S. Fei Hu. Out of many regression turns, this Fei Hu's fable was always picked as the winning one for the current Great Fable scenario. It was to such an extent that even before the competition was over, the saying, "Victory already belongs to Fei Hu anyway," routinely made rounds. Hurry up and decide already. Just hold on. I might look like this, but this grade I possessed over 10 years, worth of experience as the reader of genre novels. Just by looking at the titles, I only had to read the introductions to easily figure out what kind of fables we might get here. I reorganized the list by newest and began scrolling through the fable chambers. Right now, it's a bit of a trend to change the protagonist. Change the protagonist, how? For instance, the majority of people think that the MC of the journey to the West is Sun Wukong, right? But when you actually get down to it, it really appeared. I've reincarnated as the last disciple in the journey to the West. Current number of votes, 3313. Introduction. Just for how long will Sun Wukong remain as the hero? It's time for Pigsy to show his stuff. Recruiting extras at all times. Reincarnation, possession, healing. Current ranking, 8th. It's already underway. Damn it. I scrolled down once more. Not too long afterwards, I discovered a couple more excellent-sounding chambers. Disciples that I managed to rear. Current number of votes, 3310. Introduction. Here comes Tang Sanzeng after training the strongest disciples. Possession, rearing, healing. Current ranking, 9th. The journey's extra TL, LOL. Current number of votes, 3221. Introduction. I've somehow ended up inside the journey to the West, but I seem to have become Tang Sanzeng's horse. Extra system, animal. Current ranking, 11th. Damn it, all the fable chambers with potential for great popularity were already full. You've been dilly-dallying too long and now, it seems you're already done for. I didn't want to acknowledge it, but he might be right on this one. Many high-ranked chambers had finished casting their main characters, and not only that, their fables were already well underway, making it a bit hard for me to butt in now. I couldn't help but wonder whether I should just apply to become an extra or not, but then I'd not be able to acquire what I want through a role with such little importance. The 4th fable chamber list will close soon. After closing, it'll become impossible to register additional roles with the exception of extras. It was literally one thing after another. Now, the chamber closing time was approaching too. I had to make a decision here. How long passed by like that? Out of all the classifieds that I scrolled through in a hurry, I ended up spotting something rather suspicious. Urgently recruiting, searching for a Sun Wukong who will ride on the bus. All the other roles have been cast already. Just show up and you're hired. Still recruiting Sun Wukong, was it? Hang on, not just any other role but the Sun Wukong. I've become the retired SSSS grade Sun Wukong. Haven't I seen that many letters somewhere before? Even though I knew I was being taken for a ride here, I still tapped on the info tab of this chamber. And that's when I saw its introduction. Introduction, only I know the end of the journey to the West. TL, double LOL. Episode 80, Our Greatest Ally 3 Finn. TL, a Yago is basically the Korean version of the Japanese yakai. I left as is, as it's not exactly a monster nor a demon, with no direct English alternative. A quick Googling might get you the result of goblin, but most will associate that with a stinky little green creature, which a Yago definitely isn't. TL, just in case you don't know what cider as a story tag means, it's got nothing to do with the transparent semi-alcoholic beverage, but simply a Korean slang word for that refreshing feeling. Chapter 426, Our Greatest Ally 4. Only I know the end of the journey to the West. Where have I heard of that introduction before? I decided to enter and confirm the situation of this chamber first. Player 8, Nim, has entered the 6731st Fable Chamber's waiting area. Thankfully, it seemed that their fable hadn't started yet. But then again, they shouldn't be able to start without the role for Sun Wukong filled up, so there was that too. After I entered the chamber, the surroundings changed, and a large round desk suddenly materialized. Square chat windows were floating above the desk's chairs, rather than actual people. They signified the participants playing the other roles. Player 1 has currently selected the role of Zhu Beiji. Player 2 has currently selected the role of Sha Wujing. Player 6 has currently selected the role of Tang Sanzeng's White Horse. The faces of the players were all obscured by question marks. It seemed that this was done in order to protect the personal information of the actual players. Okay, but never mind that for now. There were so many players here, yet no one had selected the role of Sun Wukong yet. Player 8, hello everyone. Maybe they had all logged off or something, because no one bothered to write a message in the chat room even after I made an appearance. But then, Scenario Master, Kohenus. Scenario Master, which role you wanna? I quickly inputted my reply in the chat room in the middle. Player 8, is the role for Sun Wukong still vacant? Scenario Master, Hangul Kohenus vacant. Player 8, that's so strange. Scenario Master, had someone we want but got delayed, wanna do Sun Wukong. This guy, he seems to have a habit of not typing proper sentences. Just as I was getting worried about if it'd be okay to have someone like this guy as the scenario's master, a message popped up with a suspiciously good timing, as if its sender had read my mind. Scenario Master, me know that genre inside out, no worries bout scenario qual. Yup, it was just so hard to trust anyone with that type of grammar. Still, I decided to test a couple of things out anyway. Player 8, I'd like ask you about the chamber's title, that I've become the retired SSSSS grade Sun Wukong. Scenario Master, Hangul Kong Enus me responsible. Player 8, why are there 5 letters? Scenario Master, need that many to attract aggro. Maybe he does know something after all. It got on my nerves a bit that he didn't bother to use any polite speech, though. I continued on with my questioning. Player 8, Sun Wukong really is the protagonist, yes. Scenario Master, Kong Enus yup. Player 8, wouldn't the audience feel fed up with leaving the original work's MC as is? I thought it was a trend for the side characters or extras to become protagonists lately. I thought I had accurately picked on his weak spot, but the Master's response was surprisingly calm. Scenario Master, oh, looks like you did some market research. Player 8, it was a mere simple browse-through. Scenario Master, true about Nim's words regarding extra-turned hero stories doing good business. But Sun Wukong has to be MC if we wanna be numero uno. Think from POV of a judge. Player 8, Scenario Master, important bit not who's MC and whatnot, but how much unfamiliar character he is. And too many extra-turned hero stories out there. Would you look at this guy? At a glance, he might seem to be yapping on whatever came up into his mind, but well, what he said just now was not wrong. More often than not, the ones to take the top spot at times like this would be stories featuring the traditional heroes. For instance, Fei Hu's The Real Journey to the West featured Sun Wukong as its main protagonist. Player 8, is that why you went with retired Sun Wukong? Scenario Master, Kong Enus. Player 8, what will the retired Sun Wukong be doing? Scenario Master, nothing. Player 8. Scenario Master, it's a spoiler so no talking, so you in or not? I was in a dilemma. Scenario Master, if you're not, hurry and leave. We don't have much time. No answer in next 5 sec and I eject you. I was kind of curious about how would a retired Sun Wukong work as a protagonist, too. The fourth Fable chamber list will close in 5 minutes. I'd be cutting it too fine if I were to search for another chamber now. Damn it, I don't have a choice here. Regardless of what kind of scenario it was, as long as I do my best, it'd be fine, right? Player 8, I'm in. Scenario Master, then my turn to ask questions. Player 8, regarding. Scenario Master wishes to confirm your details. Please select the information you wish to reveal. He wants to view my information. Player 8, is it really necessary? Scenario Master, just want to know your name. My name was it. I decided to reveal some of my info. Player 8 Nim is a constellation. Player 8 Nim's modifier is the Watcher of Light and Darkness. The applicable information is made available only to the Scenario Master. The Scenario Master didn't respond for a while. He must have been shocked by what he saw. Scenario Master, you were a constellation Nim, but why here in a low-rent chamber? I replied quickly. Player 8, I may come across that way, but I know how to fight a bit. I dearly wish to become the retired Sun Wukong. Scenario Master, something smells fishy though. Player 8, the real fun is in raising an unpopular fable from ground up, wouldn't you agree? Scenario Master, BTW, what's up with the dumpling? Yep. You're currently accompanied by your pet, Murim Dumpling. Damn it, I forgot that this guy was here with me. Scenario Master, but we ain't got no roles for pets though. Player 8, it's just a dumpling. It's not even strictly a pet per se. Scenario Master, it's a bit awkward in it. Your opinions, PLS. Surprisingly enough, the Scenario Master actually went and asked for the opinions of other players. Player 1 Nim says that it's fine if it's a Murim dumpling. Player 4 Nim says that Master should do whatever takes their fancy. Player 3 Nim says that I want to play this game right now. Thankfully, other players didn't object. Scenario Master, Concanus, we doing it so might as well ask for Murim type PPL. Player 8, thank you. Scenario Master, Colganus. A short while later, the countdown began. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fable Chamber, I've become the retired SSSSS grade Sun Wukong, has begun its storytelling. This Fable Chamber's plot will follow the one set out by the Scenario Master. The main plotline of the Fable Chamber can be interfered with by the judges or the audience. The journey to the West remake will commence. Bright light dye my vision ash gray next. I've become the retired SSSSS grade Sun Wukong. Letters appeared in a stylish manner from the darkness. And so I had become this story's main character, Sun Wukong, and would participate in this play from now on. Honestly speaking, my heart was palpitating just a bit. To think I'd really become the protagonist of an actual story. Kim dak yaku enting kai kenzaler edi. Along with the fourth waltz voice entering my head, messages floated up before my eyes. Prologue is starting. Prologue will be told through a flashback sequence. During the applicable section, players can only speak the assigned dialogue. Scenario Master's narration is now commencing. Finally, a voice came from beyond the darkness next. At the end of the lengthy travel alongside Sanzang's company, Sun Wukong had eventually arrived in the western regions and succeeded in obtaining the sacred Buddhist texts. Oh, so it's begun. The scene actually changed as well, and before I even realized it, my body had morphed to that of Sun Wukong. Folks that could be my companions were around me, but maybe because this was a flashback sequence, their faces were blurred out, and my lips began moving all on their own. Finally, retirement is it. It sure was a long itinerary. At the same time, Sun Wukong's memories fleeted past my eyes. getting chased away by Tang Sanzang, getting stabbed in the back by Zhu Beiji, and even abandoned by Sha Wujing. Memories of dragging around a ragtag bunch of utterly useless morons as his companions, fighting against countless Yago creatures until I became a bloody mess. Now that I saw those things, it did seem somewhat saddening and bitter. So, this was how the journey to the West looked like from Sun Wukong's perspective then. But it was then when I heard a strange voice. "Are you planning to end it like this?" I looked down to find the scared texts suddenly talking to me. "Are you really satisfied by this sort of a story?" I was somewhat impressed by this. So, our story's plot would start in this manner, now was it? Words continued to rise above the sacred Buddhist texts. "Do you not resent the unfairness of it? You've experienced expulsion by Sanzang because of illogical reasons and had to suffer oppression many times over. Was that all? You've been tortured by the constrictive headband because of crimes you were not guilty of. Nothing more than the reason of walking on the path of Buddhism. You had to protect Tang Sanzang and stick to a grueling itinerary, even though you'd have arrived in your destination in the blink of an eye by riding on your somersault cloud. For sure, the journey to the West did have cruel aspects when it came to treating Sun Wukong. And the result of such an arduous journey is for you to ascend to paradise. Are you not truly incensed by this conclusion?" Now that I heard it, this did sound like a great injustice somehow. You can restart from the beginning. Restart from the beginning. You can start this journey from the beginning once more. It was around then when I got this ominous chill creep down my backside. Gotta admit, this was a regression story. My lips began moving all on their own again. What the hell? I got here after going through so much rubbish, yet you want me to go through that crap again from the beginning. No, you won't suffer this time. What? Exploit your comrades to the fullest, and become an existence that does not save anyone. Indeed, you shall become a demon king that only lives for himself. Right then, blinding rays of light exploded out from the sacred texts. Flashback sequence has concluded. The play will begin in earnest. It seemed that the story up until here was all a part of the prologue, which meant that the real episode would start from now. As if it was waiting for this moment, the words Episode 1 floated up to the view. And I grandly freaked out next. Episode 1, The Demon King of Salvation. What? As if it had read my mind, the narration started again. It was not a well-known tale, but once upon a time, Sun Wukong used to be called the Demon King of Salvation. I wondered what kind of dogshit crap this was, but for the time being, decided to hear it out till the end. This small stone monkey had a nasty habit of sacrificing himself to save other people, and many of those who received his unwanted rescue attempts ended up with psychological scars. Gods and Buddhas of the heavens all criticized him for it, yet that dumb rock for brains continued to throw his life away to save other people over and over again. And no, hang on a minute here. The heaven's great Jade Emperor and Buddha felt that they could no longer accept such actions from Sun Wukong anymore, and imprisoned the Monkey King inside the stone crate under the Marble Mountain. And our story starts from there. Judge King of Stone Monkeys likes this particular backstory. Portion of judges have awarded points for the plot that mirrors the current trend. 2 points have been awarded. My attention was drawn to the mirroring the current trend message. So could this be the reason? First episode has begun. Unrestricted speech section has begun. Do your best to create an interesting and enjoyable fable by acting according to your role. I shuddered greatly and regained my wits. Chills crept up from various parts of my body, and my back hurt like crazy as well. I heard the noises of pitch-black soil fall around me. My current situation was that only my head was peeking out from beneath the mountain. Currently, you're sealed under the 5 Elements mountain. Well, it seemed that I was currently being squashed flat by the 5 Elements mountain. Audiences are curious about what your reaction will be. Scenario Master is urging you to say something fitting your role. This was the very first scene, after the MC had just finished regressing. Since I saw this situation appearing frequently in genre novels, I figured that I'd be rather familiar with what to say here. But after finding myself in those characters' shoes, I couldn't even imagine what to say anymore. Still, I decided to say something regardless. Where am I? Wasn't I returning with the sacred texts just now? Obviously, no normal, sane-minded person would be talking to himself like this. 5 Elements Mountain. Holy cow, did I really regress? So I couldn't help but get shocked at myself, capable of muttering out such lines with ease. Audiences now understand your current situation. Scenario Master is nodding their head in approval of your instincts for dialogue. Scenario Master has acknowledged you. God admit, I wanted to hide in a hole so bad right now. Portion of the audience is waiting in anticipation for the next scene. I recalled the journey to the West's plot points. According to the original, Sun Wukong was supposed to wait for 500 years below the 5-element mountain. And so, 5 minutes passed by, then 10 after that. Yeah, there's no way, right? Sun Wukong's ears perked up after hearing noisy voices coming from afar. I breathed a sigh of relief. Now, according to the original, the first person Sun Wukong met was Tang Sanzeng. As he looked at the familiar people approaching him, Sun Wukong began reminiscing about the ancient past. 2 children were walking closer to my location. 2 kids that wore cute-looking Buddhist robes and sporting toy-like crowns on their heads. The memories of that day, when he first met Tang Sanzeng. Sun Wukong was lost within the rose-tinted reminiscence. Chills slowly crept down my back now. That faintest sense of déjà vu I felt earlier was now gradually becoming reality. The fourth wall, buzzing noisily, then asked me, "Why o reality didn't kno?" I couldn't answer back. That suspicion I had when I saw those 5 letters, even though I believed it couldn't be possible, a part of my heart still hoped against hope. I gritted my teeth and did my best to hold onto my consciousness, trying to slip away. Ah, he's over there. I think it's that Ajasi. Let me go ask him. They were perhaps the world's smallest pair of Sanzeng. Yigil grabbed my head to lift it up and asked me next. "You bastard, are you the Demon King of Salvation, Sun Wukong?" Episode 80, Our Greatest Ally 4, Finn. TL, okay, lots of Korean internet lingo to go through. Kohang enus means hello. Hangul kong enus is yup, so when used multiple times simply means yup. Kong enus means okay. Finally, kong enus equals go also can mean see ya. Chapter 427, Episode 80, Our Greatest Ally 5. Not knowing whether to laugh or cry, all I could do was to look at the kids and reply, "I am." And then I heard the warning message next. "Warning, you have come in contact with some of Kim Dokya Company's members. Chaos residing somewhere deep inside you have begun wiggling. Judge King of Stone Monkeys has revealed his displeasure. The contest this time doesn't have anything interesting to watch." A young monkey covered entirely in a coat of rather beautiful golden fur roughly scratched his mane, and while looking at the screens displayed on holographic panels, yawned over and over again. Another monkey wearing a cowboy get-up watched that from the sidelines before making a retort. Judge, manager of Heaven's Stables, is chastising the King of Stone Monkeys. Meihawang, handsome Monkey King, you truly are an impatient one. If you took your time perusing, then you'd have found 1 or 2 interesting stories by now. HNG, by Mon, keeper of heavenly horses. So was it your lofty patience that allowed you to clean up horse shit for over 2 weeks straight? I'd like to talk about only the refined matters in this place, if we could. I can already tell what you're going to do with my eyes closed. I mean, you'll just slap high scores to any story that doesn't feature stables in it anyway. But don't you also lose your mind in excitement whenever a story features mountain of flowers and fruit? Oi, great sage, what do you think? Have you found something interesting to watch yet? That question was directed to a certain pure blonde-haired man, yawning loudly with his chin supported by the Rui Bang. He lazily opened his lips. This year doesn't seem to have anything fresh, that's for sure. Thought so. We had quite a few people running around with wild imaginations in the past, hadn't we? Like how we were portrayed as members of a battle-maniac species that grew stronger by overcoming deadly hurdles. Yeah, that was really fun back in the day, but I didn't like the way they portrayed us as humans. Baimon's words elicited a smirk from the great sage. Oi, looky here. You guys might be monkeys, but I'm almost human, you know. But you changed only because of that fable's influence, didn't you? Meihaweng Baimon and the great sage. They were different fable bodies of the one that enjoyed the true name of Sun Wukong. At first, they were all one being, but after each of the fables developed separately, the various personalities split apart from one another as well. This kid Fei whose rate of growth is no joke. At this rate, we might have ourselves a brand new Sun Wukong. Yeah, sure. Something that hasn't happened in the last few thousand years will suddenly happen now. Sure thing. 3 separate Sun Wukongs had gathered inside this large judge's office to take a gander at the various fables of the Journey to the West remake, being played out on the holographic panels. Some of them were boring, while a few seemed to be promising enough. They even pressed the like button on a couple of unfamiliar but interesting ones, too. They also didn't forget to assign scores, as the 3 of them constantly bickered among themselves. Mei Haweng asked, "Hey, great sage, I forgot to ask you, what happened to those guys the last time?" "Which guys?" "You know, back when you asked us for help so Baimon, and I lent you our powers." "Ah, you mean the great war of saints and demons. It worked out all right, but their representative went missing." That prompted a retort from Baimon. "Are you talking about that fool whom you kept chasing after but never chose you as his sponsor?" "Hey, I never chased him around, got that? I only responded once or twice at his ardent pleas, that's all." "Oh, but for that once or twice, I remember you willingly sacrificing some of your scant hair, though." "Shut up." The great sage roughly dug his ear with the Rui Bang and changed the topic. "By the way, why has Dujin Shengfo, victorious fighting Buddha, arrived yet? All the Sun Wukongs have gathered in one place, so how come he's missing from this occasion?" "You know that nerd's always late." "What about Beiji and Wujing?" "They went to speak to the Heavenly Palace people." "That Jade Emperor dude, is he thinking of butting in during the judging again?" "As long as our opinions don't clash, it doesn't matter if that side wishes to interfere." "But our opinions have never matched before, so there's our problem." As if they were waiting for this very moment, the door to the judge's office was pushed open, and Zhu Beiji and Sha Wujing made their entrance. "Excuse me, Hyung Nims. The higher-ups say that it's about time we announce this year's best candidates." "Shut it, can't you see we're still busy?" Both Zhu Beiji and Sha Wujing flinched from Mei Hawang's threatening voice and took hurried steps back. The great sage asked them, "By the way, who's the lady behind you?" "Ah, apologies for the late introduction. She's this year's new judge. I heard that she's also Sakyamuni's successor." Sakyamuni had a successor. Someone entered the office in a calm, composed gait. However, the moment the great sage saw the woman wearing a fine, elegant Buddhist robe and a slender crown, his eyes trembled from shock. Baimon sensed that and asked him, "Someone you know?" The great sage didn't reply and simply stared at her face for a while. The woman didn't reciprocate that gaze, instead choosing to cross the table and head towards the panel displaying the fables. Baimon used his chin to point and speak. "This is actually good news. It might not be a bad idea to hear the newbie's opinion. Hey, Miss Sakyamuni's successor, which fable takes your fancy?" The woman's robe, busy swaying about, came to a stop in a certain spot. Sakyamuni's successor stared at a certain story with a pair of still eyes. Her hand slowly reached out and touched the display, causing ripples to spread out like the emotions of longing itself. "I seem to like this fable the most. Wyokin you alreadikim dakya." The fourth wall was right. In a way, you could say that I knew something like this would happen. I kind of suspected that the folks in this fable chamber might be the Kim Dakya Company's members. The agreement with the Weni King is in danger. And also, I thought that it'd give rise to such a result, too. Even then, I could not make this choice. You've been warned not to get in contact with them. 999, sitting on my shoulder, whispered to me. Just by meeting the kids, a change was already taking place within my incarnation body. The transformation to the outer God is accelerating due to the risk to the agreement condition. I haven't gone against the agreement itself. Technically speaking, the content of the deal was to never reveal my identity to Kim Dokya Company, wasn't it? The moment they find out, everything will be over. I know that already, so stop worrying. Outer God transformation progress percentage, 3%. Most likely, I'd end up as an outer God like the secretive plotter when that percentage maxes out. I was thinking that honestly, it shouldn't matter as long as I fulfill our agreement before that. For now, I was happy to see the kids walking in front of me in such great harmony. A small number of audience members complain that Sanzeng can't be two people. While listening to the messages streaming in, I continued to walk behind the kids leading in the front. I heard that children grow remarkably fast every day. That statement really hit home after realizing that they indeed had grown so much taller already. Now that I thought about it, it sure had been a while since I spent some time with them like this. I had no idea what either Yi Gil-yong or Shin Yu-seung were thinking about most of the time. It was what the scenario master had said. I saved them on my whim and abandoned them behind with no thoughts of taking any responsibility. Just like how it was like for me in the past, these two kids had been left alone and neglected by me. Oi, Demon King of Salvation. Yes. So this was more or less the punishment that I deserve. Shin Yu-seung, watching on from the side, spoke up. You shouldn't be so rude to someone you don't know. But Soo-young Nuna said I should act like this, you know. Even then, you should still stick to basic etiquette. As expected of my incarnation. She studied me with pitying eyes before whispering to Yi Gil-yong via nebula chat. Of course, since I was also a member of the same nebula, I could hear her words just fine. This way, he'll trust us more, you dummy. What will you do if he decides to wreak havoc later? I felt goosebumps break out on my skin. You're actually scared of him. Look at his current state, will ya? For sure, I didn't buy the Great Sage, Heaven's Equal Avatar set, sold by Emperor. So my current attire consisted of nothing more than the 500-year-old, standard, ragged clothing. Shin Yu-seung patted the dirt away on my clothes and politely greeted me. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Constellation Nim. Will be in your care. I'll be in yours as well. Also, how should I call you both? Yi Gil-yong replied as if he was waiting for that. I'm the monk Xuan Chinese letter, and she's the monk Zhang Chinese letter. Call us that from now on. His voice was full of mischievousness, as if he was playing a game. So then, Yi Gil-yong was the monk Xuan, while Shin Yu-seung was the monk Zhang, was it? To think they'd split the name of the monk Xuanzang and give it to the kids. It was indeed a rather adorable idea. A portion of audience members think that the two monks are quite adorable. Portion of judges find the setting of two monks interesting. 4 points have been acquired. Yi Gil-yong, still drunk on all these new settings, continued to yap about himself. Meanwhile, Shin Yu-seung whispered in my ear, I'm sure you're a little bit confused by all these strange setups. Yes, I'm really sorry. Our scenario master is a bit of an eccentric, so. No, it's fine. I could guess who the scenario master was already. Well, there could ever be only one person capable of coming up with such an out-there story in Kim Dokya Company, after all. Still, you don't have to worry about anything. We'll definitely look after you well. All you have to do is to ride the bus well and just quietly follow us. Tears almost broke out from my eyes after being subjected to all this friendly treatment. It would have hardly been enough for me to console the kids first, yet they were worried about me instead. What a shameful thing this was. At that moment, Sun Wukong swore to protect Sanzing in this life, as well. That's right, I'd definitely protect these kids. I might not have been able to do my role properly in the past, but at least, from now on, Kagagagugu. Noises of explosions came from somewhere. I reflexively scanned my vicinity. Kodujijuru. It did sound like explosions, sure, but something also felt a bit off about them. Something must have exploded, but why did it sound as if the noise was made by someone's mouth? Shin Yuseung hurriedly approached my side and whispered again, "Please don't panic. We're simply mirroring the original setting." Pardon. I heard that in the original story, all onomatopoeia were written in between quotation marks. A portion of the judges are impressed by the unexpected mirroring of the original work. 10 additional points have been acquired. What the hell? I thought such a thing was a mistake solely reserved to mass-market fantasy genre novels. I wasn't even given enough time to get flustered by the unexpected level of observation by the scenario master on the original work. The kids pushed me behind them and took large steps forward. Having a look again, I realized that the so-called explosion noises seemed to have originated from a large canyon in front of us. Sun Wukong stared deeply at the Shepen Mountains Yingchu Stream Canyon. Since this was his second stab at life, he knew what would pop out from that canyon. If my memory was right, then the second being the group encountered in the journey to the west was the third son of the Dragon King of West Sea, Jade Dragon. Right, it's him, and he would become. He was the existence that would be reborn as Tang Sanzeng's white dragon horse. Well, since the narration took care of everything, I didn't have much else to say here. I stepped forward and spoke up. "Both of you please hide somewhere. I shall handle this." If my memory was working fine, then one of the players took on the role of the Tang Sanzeng's white dragon horse. I was pretty sure that he was the one behind the current event. Seeing that the kids were participating in this fable chamber, the rest of the players should also be from Kim Dokya Company. But if someone with ill intention had somehow buted in here. "We told you, you just stay on the bus." A small but pretty darn strong hand grabbed my shoulder. I looked back to find Shin Yuseung forming a rather scary smile. "A guy who can't even afford proper clothes wants to show off. Step back." Yi Gil-yong cracked his knuckles and took a step forward as well. I tried to urgently chase after the kids, but they had already ran ahead to the canyon and started fighting a blue-hued dragon that flew out from there. "Tu quack-quack-quack-quack." Yi Gil-yong shouted out the onomatopoeia and rushed forward, and the blue dragon jumping out from the canyon also roared out in response. I immediately recognized who that dragon was. It's the Chimera Dragon. Kids fought with the blue dragon as if they were having a dance-off in the air, and through taming, subjugated the creature in no time at all. Audience members are impressed by the kid Sanzeng's martial prowess. A small number of audience members are lodging a protest, complaining that Sanzeng's are too powerful. A portion of judges are surprised by this unexpected turn of events. And a short while later, Player 6, Nim, has joined the group. The Chimera Dragon was transformed into Xuanzeng's white horse and was dragged over here by the two children. While trying to understand this situation, which was resolved without me needing to do anything, I recalled the conversation I had with the scenario master earlier. What will the retired Sun Wukong be doing? Nothing. Only now did I understand just a little bit. This story seemed to be created for this from the word go, and right in the next instant, a message from a familiar constellation landed in my ear. Judge, prisoner of the Golden Headband, finds the current fable's plot quite interesting. 10 additional points have been acquired. A day passed by like that, then another day went by. I was gradually waking up to the identity of this fable chamber. It's a grasshopper, eat. Demon King of Salvation Nim, do your legs hurt? This fable is one for Sun Wukong's benefit. Sun Wukong was really comfortable. This would be my first time to be all relaxed and leisurely ever since the scenarios began. My brain had almost seized up after it got submerged in the sea of comfort for too long. New fable is germinating in you. Fable Sneezing Without Hands has begun its storytelling. I could just about make a guess, as to why Han Soo-young came up with a scenario like this one. Judge, prisoner of the golden headband, likes this plot development very much. The Journey to the West was a story built around Sun Wukong's sacrifice. Even the later variations had similar themes, too. So what would happen if a fable specifically for Sun Wukong made its appearance? Judge, prisoner of the golden headband, is envious of you. Judge, manager of heaven's stables, is envious of you. Score 312. It seemed that Han Soo-young's claim of being a popular author was true. The fable's total votes had already surpassed 300, and we were enjoying smooth sailing so far. And well, such a plot wasn't necessarily bad for my companions either. Nominally, the MC of the story was Sun Wukong, but as every battle was handled by my companions instead, all the shares of the fable at the end of the scenario would naturally belong to Kim Dak-ya Company, alone. What a well-thought-out scheme this was. Get a nice score tally, and also ensure you walk away with fable shares too. Arg, I want to play some games on my phone. But you played so much before coming here. Even though the kids adorably bickered with each other, they didn't forget to feed me, help me fall asleep, and hell, even groomed the fur on my head too. Yi Gil-yong asked me with a pout, so like, what do you do originally? It's bad manners to ask about his private life, you dummy. Shin Yuseung, pulling out premature gray hair on my head, tackled the boy immediately. I was slightly worried whether such a meta-conversation was allowed or not, but for the time being, I decided to answer him. I thought about it and realized that I hadn't had a chat like this with the kids up until now. I just enjoy reading novels. Novels? Oh, I like reading them too. Yi Gil-yong liked reading novels. Really? That was an unexpected piece of info. He was now really amped up as he continued on. Can I recommend you a novel? He dared to make a recommendation to me, a veteran of over 10 years in reading genre novels. Fine, let's hear him then. It's SSSSS grade Infinite Regressor. It's a super-duper awesome novel, so make sure to read it later, okay? Before I noticed it, my second ego jumped out to the fore. But, as I understand, that novel was a resounding failure. Failure? I heard it was really popular, though. I guess you don't have a discerning eye. Han Soo-young, that moron. Did she boast her novel to these young, gullible kids? Shin Yuseung, listening on, quickly joined in as well. I also really like reading novels. Oh really? May I ask what kind of novels? I kind of was looking forward to her answer. Indeed, if it was Yuseung-e. Yes, you may. Raymond Carver, Murakami Haruki. Now, that was a lineup of authors I had heard of before. I was able to figure out who was in charge of the children's education during my absence. Yu Sang-SSI. She should have reincarnated safely by now. Shin Yuseung looked at the dumpling on my shoulder and asked me a question. By the way, you must really like Murim dumplings. Yes, I do. And Ajasi, I know, also really likes them too. I knew well who she was talking about there. Yi Gil-yong rubbed his stomach and muttered to himself. Ah, I wish I could eat some dumplings right about now. I thought I could sense the Murim dumpling on my shoulder suddenly flinch a little. Indeed, it had been way too long since I had a proper meal. But suddenly, the aroma of dumplings began wafting out from somewhere. The majority of events taking place within the Journey to the West all began with suddenly, just like this. We exchanged glances and tracked down the origin of that fantastic smell. And so, how long did we walk on the mountain trail? A huge factory now stood before us. Can a thing like that even exist in this era? Just as I began wondering if Han Soo-young's version of the journey was set in the steampunk universe, several humanoids began running outside the factory and headed this way. Everyone run away. However, the escapees were caught by some kind of an invisible force and were dragged back to the factory. Nuo. Wondering what on earth was going on here, we quickly sneaked our way inside the factory. Not too long afterwards, we got to witness the spectacle of thousands of slaves busy kneading and manufacturing something, while sticking very close to the moving conveyor belts. Could that be? The dumpling 999 on my shoulder whispered. They are making murim dumplings. Thousands upon thousands of murim dumplings were being carried away by the conveyor belts to a destination unknown. I stared at the unending river of dumplings and began wondering about the person we were about to meet this time. There was only one creature in the whole of the journey to the west that lusted after food this badly. As if he was waiting for us, a man suddenly began speaking to us. Episode 80, Our Greatest Ally 5 Finn. Chapter 428, A Dumpling's Reminiscence 1. Hello there, are you all out-of-towners? The one who spoke to us was a man on the wrong side of middle age. The well-mannered Sing-Shong stepped forward first and offered up a greeting. We were on our way to the western regions to visit Buddhism. Ho, Buddha is it? Unlike how you look, I see that you are high priests of Buddhism. Yigil-hyung saw how the middle-aged man was impressed by the revelation and began standing tall with his hands behind his back while going, ahem. The older man studied both children with unreadable eyes before finally shifting his gaze in my direction. In that case, the gentleman next to you is, he. His complexion paled instantly as he stared at the murim dumpling on my shoulder. That's a murim dumpling. Ah, this guy's just a doll. I like dumplings, that's why. Is that so? You really surprised me there. The middle-aged man patted his chest down, still looking somewhat freaked out. Judging from the armband slung across his upper arm like that, he must have been the supervisor of this factory. Thinking that this was a fortunate turn of events, we decided to ask this man some questions. What is this factory, exactly? Why are you making lots of dumplings like that? Could it be that you came here without knowing anything? The middle-aged man studied us with a troubled look on his face, before carrying on as a lengthy sigh escaped from his lips. This is all the fault of that scary Yago. A Yago, you say? Indeed, originally this place wasn't a factory. According to the middle-aged man, this place used to be a peaceful little rural village. But on a certain day, a tall, hulking swine-type Yago with jet-black skin suddenly made his appearance, kidnapped every female in the village, enslaved all the men, and created this very factory. That bastard took my daughter and wife as his concubines and locked us up in this place. I'm sure you can tell that there's a strange supernatural power swirling around here, and it prevents us slaves from leaving this factory. Not only that, that Yago devours so much too. We're forced to make dumplings all day long, but it seems to never be enough, you see. The factory's manufacturing system is searching for the supervisor. Damn it, I have to get going now. The middle-aged man hurriedly put on a pair of sanitary gloves and a face mask before rushing towards the conveyor belts. Before I could step up and say something, Shin-Shong reached out and grabbed the middle-aged man first. It's unfair for you Ajuses to perform slave labor like this. Not only that, you said that Yago even kidnapped females of the village too. We can't overlook this. As expected of my incarnation. Sure, we had to do this in order to advance the plot, but still. We shall help you. Where can we find that Yago? Even if it's you monk Nims that Yago is, will you really help us? Of course we will. The middle-aged man kept rolling his eyes around for a bit, but eventually told us the direction where we could find this Yago. We leave it all up to you. Please defeat that Yago. We nodded our heads and walked in the direction pointed out to us. The dumpling Yago was waiting at the end of this dumpling road. We walked alongside the so-called dumpling road, created out of the conveyor belts. As if he couldn't hold it any longer, Yigil-hyung began picking up and chowing down dumplings every couple of steps. Hey, this is really tasty. Of course they were. These were none other than murim dumplings, after all. However, it seemed that the foremost expert on all things murim dumpling was thinking a bit differently than us. The aroma is a little off. What? Hand me a dumpling. While walking behind the two kids, I cautiously picked up a dumpling and handed it over to, the dumpling on my shoulder. And sure enough, watching one dumpling eat another one proved to be a rather grotesque sight. The combination of ingredients is wrong. It seems that he has not mastered the art of Murim dumplings. Murim dumpling number 999 formed a somewhat dissatisfied expression and began ordering me around out of the blue. Take half a spoon of the substance inside the green container and add that in. Since we still had a long way to go anyway, I decided to follow this little guy's orders and began adding the ingredients inside the dumpling skins. You must familiarize yourself with the flames of true samadhi fire. Place the steamer so that the yellow flames are touching it in the middle and then heat it. This had to be some kind of a dream. To think I was learning how to make dumplings from a dumpling while walking on the dumpling road. And so, how long did I walk on this dreamlike road? At the end of this road, I was rewarded with a packet of appetizing Murim dumplings. While looking at 999, nodding his head triumphantly, I began wondering what the hell I just did here. Looks like that's our destination. I looked in the direction Shin Yuxiang was pointing at. There was a pathway at the end of the conveyor belt leading to large stone walls and a newly built residential area. A handful of workers were delivering the packaged dumplings over there. It seemed that we had arrived at where the dumpling consumer was. We walked closer, prompting the security guard to approach us. "Who are you people?" Shin Yuxiang grinned brightly and replied, "We are but humble monks on our way to the west to seek an audience with Buddhism and acquire the sacred texts. We coincidentally stumbled across this place during our journey. Will it be fine for us to enter?" "Ah, are you by any chance the party of the Tang dynasty's monks?" "That's correct." I was dumbfounded by that conversation. It had been only a few days since this journey had begun, so there was no freaking way that the rumors of us would have arrived here already. "You've learned of the fable, words swifter than feet." Shin Yuxiang whispered in my ear. "I heard that this is how it's like in the original." "Ah, so that's how it was." A portion of the judges are impressed by the scenario master's high level of research. 10 additional points are awarded for the excellent reflection of the original work. To think that they would judge us imitating the improbable timing as seen in the original as research. How shocking. The gatekeeper spoke. "My apologies, but our village doesn't permit entry to any outsiders. I'm sorry that you had to walk this far to get here, but I implore you to turn ba. Kek." Yigil must have found the gatekeeper's explanation long-winded, because the boy punched the poor man in the belly and knocked him out flat. As if he was making an excuse, he quickly spoke. "Let's just rush inside and beat up that dumb Yago." Suyong Nuna said that the audience members like speedy plot development. Han Suyong, that idiot. She seemed to have taught these kids something really nice. A portion of the audience is satisfied by Tang Sanzeng's decision. 1 additional point has been acquired. I looked at Shin Yuxiang and Yigil and spoke to them. "In that case, let's go in." "Nope, Ajasi, you stay here and relax." "Excuse me. We told you, Sun Wukong is supposed to ride the bus and that's it." "But..." I really didn't want to do this, but seriously now." Shin Yuxiang held the rosary beads and began reciting something. "Prajna Paramit Chardaya Kim Dak Ya. Don't try anything unnecessary and stay put sutra." "What?" Tang Sanzeng has recited the Constrictive Sutra. Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter. Item, constrictive headband, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, is reacting to it. I was immediately overcome with pain akin to my head, shattering into pieces and blacked out on the spot. So that must have been the Constrictive Sutra that I had read about. By the time I woke up, both Shin Yuxiang and Yigil had disappeared into the village. I looked to my side to discover a damn dumpling staring at me with a mocking leer. "What will you do now?" "Go after them, obviously." Now normally, it should be fine to let those 2 kids be. They had become strong incarnations that didn't require my help after all. However, something felt off to me here. If Sun Wukong's gut feeling was right, then it was pretty obvious which creature they would encounter here. I could think of someone when it came to all things Murim dumplings related, but to think that idiot would use slaves to operate a factory and even become a villain that kidnaps women, I couldn't wrap my head around it. It was then someone discovered Sun Wukong. Kayak it's a Yago. I turned my head to find several women standing over yonder. Ladies who saw Sun Wukong's appearance were greatly shocked. They pointed to my pointy monkey-like ears peeking out from the golden hair and began backing away. But then, they spotted the dumpling on my shoulder and became rather chatty all of a sudden. He must like Murim dumplings. Does that mean he's a good Yago? I wasn't sure how these ladies got to that illogical-sounding conclusion, but I figured that, what with things developing like this, I might as well exploit the situation a bit. By any chance, are you the kidnapped villagers? My question caused the ladies to stare at each other, evidently confused about something. Kidnap, we've never been kidnapped though. But I heard that a pitch-black colored swine-like Yago has kidnapped you all. A swine? No way, are you perhaps talking about Zhu Beiji Nim? Zhu Beiji Nim. Sure, our Beiji Nim's skin is somewhat tan, but it's not to the point of calling it pitch black. But he does resemble a swine in some aspect, doesn't he? Like his thick biceps or those tough, strong thighs, but that's not the same as being a swine. Something was definitely going down the wrong direction here. With an excellent timing, a huge commotion broke out in the middle of the village, so I quickly ran over there. It was pretty obvious who was behind that disturbance. Stop right there. A boy's voice loudly resounded out. I pushed my way past the wall of women until I came face to face with the village's large plaza, a large litter in its middle, and the two children standing in front of it. There was no need to mention that they were Ye Gilyong and Shin Yuseung, of course. The boy stepped forward like a kid general and shouted out, "You're the Yago that kidnapped many of the village's women and constructed a dumpling factory to satisfy your selfish interests and desires, aren't you?" A portion of the audience is singing praises of Tang Sanzang's adorableness. Judge, successor of Sakyamuni, has added 5 additional points. Right, he was really adorable. Didn't matter who was inside that litter, there was no way anyone would be able to fight this kid after hearing. No, hang on, if it was that bastard, yeah, he might actually. And like clockwork, an incredible level of status whipped up into a frenzy from inside litter currently covered in screens. Lower the litter. A heavy-sounding tone of voice came out from inside the carrier. It seemed to contain this surprising power to change the mood of the surrounding atmosphere with just a single word. I swallowed my saliva and walked up to the kids. We told you to stay back because it might get dangerous. Leaving me behind like that is actually even more dangerous. Soon, the screen of the litter slowly rose up, and the problematic Yago finally made its appearance. Sun Wukong knew who that was. Martial Canopy / Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Zhu Beiji. Shin Yuseung's jaw dropped in dumbfoundedness. That's the pixie. Sun Wukong thought that something was definitely wrong here. Because what he saw was not the Zhu Beiji he remembered. For a moment there, I had this feeling that this world's balance of beauty had tilted to one side. A nonsensical amount of cheering erupted out all around us next. Oh, ooh, dear Zhu Beiji Nim. For sure, calling a face like that Yago didn't seem all that out of place. Because, well, it was inconceivable that a normal human would be blessed with such looks after all. Eyebrows seemingly drawn by a single, uninterrupted stroke of a famed artist's brush. A nose and a chin shaped in perfect angles that defied attempts to measure them through mere devices of men. A pair of deep eyes seemingly carved out of a beautiful jewel containing all the misfortunes found in this world. If someone saw those features and not get immediately drawn in by them, then there must be something wrong with that person. And sure enough, the villagers, regardless of gender or age, were pouring out their praises towards this Zhu Beiji. Zhu Beiji Nim, hooray! The creator of Murim dumplings, hooray! The so-called pixie, half of his black-colored vest unbuttoned and wearing a pair of black jeans, climbed down from the litter. Finally, the day we decide the victor has arrived. You sooty bastard. Gil-yong triumphantly roared out as if he was expecting this. He began swinging his small fists around as if he was playing Jwibble Nari and dashed towards Zhu Beiji. Of course, there was no way such a thing was going to work. "Let me go, you pig." Zhu Beiji easily picked the boy up by the scruff of his neck, glanced at Shin Yuseung briefly, and strode over to where we were. "You bastard must be Sun Wukong." Episode 81, A Dumpling's Reminiscence 1 Fin. Chapter 429, A Dumpling's Reminiscence 2. Right, I had a feeling that he'd be Zhu Beiji from the beginning. However, just in which aspect was he anywhere remotely pixie? A small portion of the audience cannot comprehend the outer appearance of Zhu Beiji. A small portion of audience members are complaining that this is an insult to the original work. Judge Meihuang argues that this doesn't even make sense. It seemed that there were some members of the audience with a similar train of thought as me, and then, in the next moment, the majority of the audience welcomed the choice of the current Zhu Beiji. NG. Number of votes obtained is increasing greatly. Fable Chamber's ranking has increased greatly. Could it be? Judge Cleanser of Altars is satisfied with his outer appearance. Those in the know should already be aware of it. This Cleanser of Altars was Zhu Beiji's modifier. Judge Cleanser of Altars is deeply satisfied by the casting of his role. 150 additional points have been awarded. As Yu Young-hyuk glared at me with his trademark piercing eyes, large letters slowly floated up before my eyes. Episode 2, The Conquering King Zhu Beiji. Congratulations, your Fable Chamber's ranking has broken into the top 100. Han Soo-young looked at the message floating up before her eyes and scrolled to the next page with a wry grin on her face. The folks inside the panel screen were acting according to the plot she had cooked up. She pushed up the horn-rimmed glasses on her nose that didn't have any lenses and muttered to herself. "These kids, sucky acting might cause me a heart attack at this rate." Fortunately, though, her Fable Chamber broke past the 1,000 voting points mark and had entered the upper ranks. There was a knock coming from the door behind her, and Yi Soo-jeong stepped into the room. "I've brought some fruits. If you bother to even knock, you should at least wait for an answer, or don't knock at all. How is everything going?" "About as I expected. That Fei Hu's rank is way too high, and it's not as easy as I thought to catch up." Yi Soo-jeong confirmed Han Soo-young's Fable Chamber ranking over the latter's shoulder and spoke. "It's only been a couple of days, but you're already so high up. Amazing. Compared to my heyday, this sort of achievement is nothing, you know. Besides, we don't know what'll happen next." Han Soo-young bit into the apple as she fiercely burned the torch of determination. She could see the dumbfounded face of Sun Wukong within the panel screen. From here onwards, it'll depend on how well that Sun Wukong does his job. "You're right, I'm Sun Wukong." Yu Young-hyuk heard my reply and glared at me with questioning eyes. Right afterwards, his right eye glowed in the golden light. The usage of appraisal skills isn't allowed within the applicable scenario location. Due to the worldview's restriction, his Eye of Sage didn't activate. Since I had already expected that to happen, I wasn't even remotely surprised by it. "Looks like you wanted to shoot lasers from your eye," said I with a refreshing grin on my face. Whatever the case might have been, Zhu Beiji was fated to become my underling, according to the original story. Shin Yuseung, what are standing around dazed for? Quickly defeat this guy. Yi Gil-yong, still dangling in the air, began to thrash about frantically. She glanced at him as if it was none of her business and asked Zhu Beiji instead, "Even if you like dumplings that much, how could you build a factory and use people like slaves? And why did you kidnap women in the first place?" While listening to her yell, I studied our surroundings. Zhu Beiji was a demon king of lust and gluttony in the original Journey to the West. If you thought about the original storyline, then the episode we were currently experiencing wasn't a complete impossibility. However, even if she detested Yu Young-hyuk, Han Soo-young wouldn't have stuck this closely to the original. She even changed the ways of survival to that minute degree, didn't she? Besides, even if she wrote such a scenario, Yu Young-hyuk wouldn't have agreed to. I didn't kidnap these women. His words quickly prompted the surrounding ladies to yell out. That's right, we weren't kidnapped at all. I studied their expressions. Not one of them looked to be under the mind control spell. Meanwhile, Ye Gil-yong yelled out in response. So what? Didn't you enslave people to make lots of dumplings so you can eat them all? Right, that's what the slave in the factory told us. However, there was one thing that I couldn't understand. Yu Young-hyuk really liked Murim dumplings. It was verging on obsession, even. But would someone like him ever touch dumplings mass-produced in a factory? I do not eat what others have made. Yu Young-hyuk even declared as thus, so it didn't make sense for him to use slaves just for the purpose of eating mass-produced dumplings. And as if to prove me right, Yu Young-hyuk spoke in a slightly sorrowful tone of voice. I haven't eaten these Murim dumplings. What are you talking about? You dumpling psycho, Shin Yu-seong, do something already. Rather than answering the boy, Yu Young-hyuk stared past the crowd around us. Dozens of houses were lined up along the alleyway. The delivered dumplings were placed before each house's entrance. I could see the village's young kids flocking around them to happily eat them. Could it be? It was at this point that a warning message suddenly appeared over the whole village. A revolt has occurred in the dumpling factory. The village's entrance, once guarded by the gatekeeper, crumbled, and the factory's slaves rushed in. We will no longer labor for you. Dumplings over here, dumplings over there, dumplings freaking everywhere. Kill him, kill that pig bastard. The eyes of the slaves gleamed viciously as they wielded hoes and rakes. Women were greatly astonished and began shouting out. Those Yogos still haven't learned their lessons. Yogos? But this guy here is the real Yago, isn't he? Ye Gil-yong shouted out, still oblivious to the situation. Yu Young-hyuk put the boy down as his expression hardened. Indeed, I should have killed them from the get-go. In that moment, I figured out what was going on here. Currently, I was the Sun Wukong, so it'd be possible for me to borrow some of his powers. I stared at the waves of Yogos rushing over here and strengthened my vision. Stigma Fiery Golden Eyes LV is activating. The Fiery Golden Eyes, the great sage's unique stigma that allowed him to discern Yogos and demons. The color of the world gradually changed, and the appearance of the humans rushing over here transformed. Twisted figures emerged, their eyes filled to the brim with murderous intentions. As expected, they were not human beings. Zhu Beiji is not our enemy. Ye Gil-yong's eyes went extra round after he heard me. He even looked disappointed for some reason. What? Dang it. Rather than ruling the village, Zhu Beiji has liberated it instead. It's those creatures that had been tormenting this village, as they are not humans, but Yogos that previously ruled this place. The slave Yogos finally revealed their true colors and unleashed their status to destroy the village. Ye Gil-yong and Shin Yu-seong only then realized what had happened and began directing the crowd. Everyone stepped behind us. The revolt of the factory slaves was it. This situation was the complete opposite of the demon world revolution in the past. What we had to do now was not liberation, but suppression. Yu Young-hyuk stepped forward first and unsheathed his dark heavenly demon sword from, no, hang on a second. A portion of the audience members are puzzled by Zhu Beiji's choice of weapon. Several judges are curious as to why Zhu Beiji is suddenly using a blade instead. Judge, Cleanser of Altars, is complaining about the whereabouts of his nine-tooth spike rake. According to the original story, Zhu Beiji didn't use a bladed weapon, but a rake called nine-tooth spike rake. Many audience members are overwhelmed by the conquering King Zhu Beiji's fighting spirit. A portion of audience members are deeply arrested by the handsome Zhu Beiji's charms. A portion of judges are accepting the change in weapons that reflect the current trend. Judge, Cleanser of Altars, coughs awkwardly and says that he'll overlook it this time as it looks cool. 5 additional points have been awarded. Damn it, were you implying that one's face could even serve as probability? Yu Young-hyuk stepped forward and suddenly brandished the dark heavenly demon sword in my direction, then drew a very tiny circle on the ground around my feet. You do not step beyond this line. Move 1 step and I'll kill you. And then Yogo's next began flying away next. His sword technique on display was beautiful enough to entrance the viewers. His swordsmanship had taken yet another major leap forward when compared to before, making it impossible to imagine just how far he had to push himself to reach such a realm. You're doing okay, Pixie. Go get them. Even before I noticed it, both Yi Gil-yong and Shin Yu-seung were standing next to me and cheering on. We stood there and spectated on Yu Young-hyuk soloing the great army of Yogos. Judge, prisoner of the golden headband, feels happy about this pleasing and relaxing progression of the story. Only now did I finally understand the deeper meaning of Han Soo-young, author Nim's firm resolution. Indeed, the story of the retired son Wukong was a pretty good one. Judge, cleanser of altars, is drunk on the coolness of himself. Judge Meihoang is slightly dissatisfied by the cool-looking Zhu Beiji. 30 additional points have been acquired. It was around this point in time that I heard a rather numinous voice resounding out from the skis above. Wait, stop your actions. The half-dead Yogos screamed loudly and began prostrating on the ground. The skis above the village opened up, and a constellation kitted out in a Taoist robe made his entrance. Judging from his attire, I was pretty sure that he was Taisheng Leijun, the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord. Oh, conquering King Zhu Beiji, those Yogos you have slain are pigs that I reared back in my palace in Tushita. They escaped after fearing their fate of being served up on the heavens' dining table, so show them sympathy and allow me to take the surviving ones away. Yup, that pattern had finally shown up. The entirety of the journey to the West's plot unfolded in such a fashion. An event would occur, the culprit would be revealed as a Yago, and when it was about to be vanquished, some weird Taoist dude would suddenly pop up and say, actually, that Yago is XX that I'd been rearing before taking it away with him. A portion of judges are awarding extra points for the development that reflect the original work. 30 additional points have been added. Of course, there was no way I'd let such a development slide without saying something, what with my twisted disposition and all. If you were planning to take them away anyway, why didn't you come and help the villagers from the beginning? My apologies, I was somewhat occupied earlier. Nope, actually, you couldn't be bothered earlier. Even in reality, countless constellations of Emperor rarely tried to aid their incarnations, just like now, when they had prior knowledge on what was going on in the scenarios. Take them away. Thank you. Yu Young-hyuk gave his permission, and Taisheng Leijun ascended up to the sky along with his pigs. Once Taisheng Leijun took his pigs away, peace finally visited this rural village. A normal story would have come to an end here. But then my fiery golden eyes suddenly stung, and the outer appearances of the Yogos leaving alongside with Taisheng Leijun wavered about greatly. Don't want to go. For how long? I heard the Yogos' voices, their tone sounding eerily familiar. Even though they luckily avoided getting killed, none of them looked happy about it. How should I put this? It was as if they wanted to die in this place instead. This village is now yours. Although you'll have to operate the factory by yourselves, you won't go empty-bellied like in the past. With that, Yu Young-hyuk joined our little group. The villagers held a tearful farewell party for us before we left. Or more specifically, they seemed to be disappointed not of us leaving, but due to Yu Young-hyuk going with us. Chet, I wanted to beat him up and then drag him away. Once the party ended, Yi Gil-yong and Shin Yu-seung set off on the road again, and I followed after them as well. Meanwhile, Yu Young-hyuk was keeping a few steps of distance away from us. What an awkward atmosphere this was. Now that I thought about it, I had no clue what Yu Jung-hyuk was like around my other companions when I wasn't around. I ended up worrying about him, and so I had to say something. "Excuse me, junior brother, why don't you walk closer to us?" "And who's your junior now?" That idiot glared back at me with incredibly intimidating eyes, and I couldn't say anything else. Meanwhile, the kids sidled up to my side and began chatting away in happiness. "Hey, Demon King of Salvation, you did all right back there. If you haven't discovered the truth about those Yogos back then, we might have ended up in a big disaster," Disciple Nim. To be honest, I hadn't done anything of note. Yu Jung-hyuk killed Yogos, and the one who saved the village was also him. All I did was spectate from the sidelines and say a couple of lines. Even then, kids were busy praising me, not him. I glanced at him. As if he hadn't heard anything, he concentrated on polishing his dark heavenly demon sword. In that moment, Kim Dakya began wondering for the first time ever. How did my companions see Yu Jung-hyuk while I'm not around? Not too long afterwards, it became evening. Gathered firewood burned brightly, and we formed a small circle around the campfire to bathe in its warmth. It felt almost as if we were out camping. It was Yu Jung-hyuk who also suddenly decided to act like a wet blanket in this pleasant atmosphere. "I shall act on my own from now on." His voice sounded utterly disinterested, as if he was still polishing his damn sword, prompting me to respond unconsciously. "What do you mean by that? Going to India and fetching the sacred texts will end this journey, is it not? I alone will be sufficient for this task. I shall go there and—" "You must not do that." Indeed, Zhu Beiji using his cloud riding technique, or even me utilizing the somersault cloud, would reach India in the blink of an eye. For sure, Sun Wukong mentioned this fact back in the original story too, and when I was much younger, I also questioned the logic behind it as well. Why did Sun Wukong go and get the text by himself? I now had a better understanding of why he didn't. If you do that, then there will be no meaning to this story. Taking over 14 years of slow crawling to cross the distance short enough to traverse in one night. That time existed for the sole purpose of completing the story that was the journey to the West. However, Yu Jung-hyuk's thoughts were different. "I don't have the time to waste here. This trip should not be that long. It'll definitely not take over 14 years for us, so please be patient. Progressing according to the itinerary while meeting the rest of our companions should prove to be a good experience for you." He must have found it unexpected that I said those words, because he began staring at me while speaking up. "You are not one of my companions." Yup, of course. There was no way that this deeply suspicious of everyone Yu Jung-hyuk would believe me. "I know that." Silence descended among the group. Yi Gil-yong wordlessly tossed a pebble inside the campfire, while Shin Yu-seung nervously studied Yu Jung-hyuk's and my current moods, her fingers fidgeting around with the soil on the ground. It was then we heard the sound of a stomach growling loudly. Yi Gil-yong frowned tearfully and rubbed his belly. "I'm starving." I grinned slightly and pulled something out from my inner pocket. "Would you like some dumplings?" It was my secret stash of dumplings that I made while walking on that dumpling road. Yi Gil-yong warily eyed me but still received a dumpling anyway. He eventually bit into it. His eyes opened up real wide, his irises trembling powerfully. "What the heck? This is so much tastier than what I ate back in the factory." Of course it was tastier, it simply had to. A portion of the audience members are getting really curious about the taste of Murim dumplings. I sensed Yu Jung-hyuk 999 flinch ever so slightly on my shoulder. In the meantime, I handed the dumplings over to Shin Yu-seung and Yu Jung-hyuk as well. The latter frowned and shook his head. "I don't eat food made by other people." "Other people didn't make this." He seemed deeply puzzled by that. Most likely, he had no idea what I was talking about. He then glared at the Murim dumpling, resting before his eyes with some suspicion, but eventually made up his mind and cautiously reached out to it. And very slowly, so very slowly, as if he was studying his new enemy, brought the dumpling near his nose. "This aroma." That's right, eat that damn dumpling, you bastard. Yu Yonghyuk continued his pained deliberation over and over again, and in the end, brought the dumpling towards his lips very slowly. As if he was tearing into the neck of the enemy commander, he took a small bite out of it. Yigil Yao, Shin Yusyung, and I tensely observed the sight of him chewing the dumpling. Even the chef 999 on my shoulder had stopped moving and waited for the dude's reaction. Gulp! Yu Yonghyuk finally finished swallowing his initial mouthful, then proceeded to take another bite. Very, very slowly, the frown on his forehead disappeared. His lips bobbed up and down in great haste. The speed at which he consumed the dumpling increased. Second bite, third bite. Eventually, his hand reached out to the second dumpling. But then, he flinched and stopped and began glaring at me instead. What are you looking at? I sneakily averted my gaze and began chowing the dumplings as well. If I used the omniscient reader's viewpoint here, I might have heard something much more entertaining just now, but well, I swore not to use that anymore, so. It's not that bad, I suppose. I heard Yu Yonghyuk's nearly inaudible muttering and quietly looked up at the sky. The stars of the night sky sparkled as they looked down at us, as if the destruction of the world was a story belonging to a distant realm. While chewing the dumpling, I began thinking this for the first time, that I wouldn't have minded this story going on for a little while longer. Deep night has arrived. Journey to the West remake system will enter 1 hour of maintenance. The darkness descending was pitch black. Everyone had fallen asleep. Sun Wukong used his arm as his pillow and began snoring away. And as for the pair of Tang Sanzangs, they used each of the Monkey King's legs as their own pillows to sleep as well. They must have been fatigued by the journey. However, a shadow quietly stood up, utilizing this dead of night where the messages from the audience members and the judges had disappeared temporarily. It was Yu Yonghyuk. He silently unsheathed dark heavenly demon sword and approached the sleeping Sun Wukong. And very slowly, he pointed the tip of his blade against the sleeping figure. Episode 81, A Dumpling's Reminiscence 2 Fin. Chapter 430, Episode 81, A Dumpling's Reminiscence 3. Yu Yonghyuk pointed the tip of his blade at Sun Wukong and slowly opened his lips. How did you expect me to respond when you were emitting that much demonic energy? The voice projection was meant to send one's voice to a designated target. However, Sun Wukong didn't reply. Instead, it was the Murim dumpling on his shoulder that did. Dark Heavenly Demon Sword is a good weapon. That voice was thick with an untold length of time it had lived through, prompting Yu Yonghyuk to strengthen the sword aura permeating on his blade. The dumpling spoke while opening its eyes to stare at the dark, heavenly demon sword, buzzing with the transcendental power. However, will you be able to cut me down with a broken weapon? Indeed, there was a faint crack running in the middle of the sword. By using the repair tools sold in the Dakibai bundle, it had been patched up somewhat, but as that statement implied, it was nothing more than a temporary measure. After it broke once, Dark Heavenly Demon Sword couldn't even display half of its original might. Yu Yonghyuk spoke. We can find out right now. And that's precisely why you couldn't win against the secretive plotter. Yu Yonghyuk's dark brows quivered noticeably at the mention of the secretive plotter. The outer appearance of the Murim dumpling seemed to slowly morph in the darkness, and the K-Coma Yu Yonghyuk number 999 regained his former look. Indeed, it was the miniaturized version of Yu Yonghyuk. The regular-sized Yu Yonghyuk's eyes trembled faintly. Are you an underling of that bastard? What is your goal here? The current you will never defeat the secretive plotter. If you came here to pass on such a meaningless message, then it'll be the same story even if you try your luck hundreds of times, exactly the same as your pathetic repeated regressions. Surely, you must be aware of this by now. The tip of the dark heavenly demon sword trembled faintly as well. Perhaps that was true. Even after he borrowed Han Suyong and Jiang Huiwan's powers, he still failed to defeat that enemy. It was obvious that he'd not be a match even if they met again. The K-Coma Yu Jung-hyuk 999 spoke in the tone of voice indicating that he understood that feeling. Yu Jung-hyuk of the third turn, how much do you know about this secretive plotter? An ancient slumber. This dream was from the days when he was still called Yu Jung-hyuk, Hanya, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter. From 0th turn all the way up to 1863rd. The story of when he was still the puppet of the most ancient dream, repeating countless lives and fighting over and over again. Oh, you foolish puppet, you can't save anything. Yu Jung-hyuk finally reached the 1863rd turn, only to lose every single one of his comrades. The maritime war god, Yijai, the beast lord Shin Yuseong, the emperor of steel sword, Yihyun Xiang, the god of medicine, Yixialhwa, the demon of delusions, Kim Namwon, the hermit king of shadows, Han Donghoon, the breaking the sky sword saint, Namgung Minyong, little sister, Yu Mia. Just like how he had many comrades, he also had as many enemies to contend with, such as 10 evil Gong Pildu Anna Croft Renvir Khan Fei Hu. I told you I won't become your ally, however. Some enemies remained hostile until the end. Maybe this regression turn will be your last. Some enemies realized he had succeeded and congratulated him. And then the final war began. Oh, the Iron Blood conquering king. Fighting alongside him as his sworn friend, the prisoner of the golden headband, the great sage, equal of heaven. I'm helping you because the star stream is an even greater evil. Working as his ally at the final hurdle, demon-like judge of fire, Uriel. This one is simply avenging the death of his incarnation, that is all. Standing on his side for the sake of avenging Kim Namwon, the abyssal black flame dragon. Why, oh foolish constellations! They advanced forward while breaking past the waves of the outer gods. They cut down countless packs of tentacles rushing at them, and faced off against the enormous statuses emitted by these gods from the other world. Stars in the sky fell nonstop. Lights from the great nebulas continued to disappear. Olympus, Vedas, Asgard. Along with the noises of one era coming to an end, the skies of the star stream were covered by the falling rain of shooting stars. The Korean peninsula's constellations also died. The Goryeo's #1 swordsman and the maritime war god fought bitterly right till the end, but they still couldn't avoid their deaths. It was the same story for Yu Jung-hyuk's comrade in arms. What an amusing life it was. The first one to lose his head was the abyssal black flame dragon. Gabriel, I'm sorry. Not too long after, the wings of the demon-like judge of fire were broken. By that time, however, even the majority of outer gods had perished as well. The one to land the final, deciding blow was the great sage. That's the end of all stories, it seems. His Rui Bang grew to an enormous height. He then dispersed into tens of thousands of clones and utilized every single fable he possessed to open up a path. As he scattered away in a golden-colored fable, the great sage spoke up. Complete your story, conquering King Yu Jung-hyuk. Yu Jung-hyuk could never forget the moment he ran on that path. It was the moment that his life, continued on breathlessly from the 0th turn up until now, was about to be completed. Slice. The head of a god from another world fell in vain. Regret will be the only thing that keeps you alive. And that curse completed Yu Jung-hyuk's conclusion. You have acquired a new great fable. Great fable, Pilgrim of the Lonesome Apocalypse, has completed its meaning. The conclusion, Chinese letter, for your final great fable has been completed. Hidden scenario, a single fable's final condition has been met. The only one remaining on the battlefield, where everything had perished, was Yu Jung-hyuk. The conclusion he finally reached by using the deaths of everyone as its fertilizer. What he wished for at the end of this lengthy fight was just this one thing. To see the end of this damn regression. For that sole purpose, he persisted and got himself here. Unfortunately, A wall prevented him from going beyond. There are 3 methods to survive in a destroyed world. I've forgotten some of them by now. However, one thing is for certain. The one reading these words, you will survive for sure. Incomprehensible texts were written on that wall. That was where Yu Yonghyuk met the Dakibai king. "Oh, hear ye the poor, tragic puppet. You have come far too quickly. I'm sorry, but past here doesn't exist yet." Yu Yonghyuk couldn't understand what that meant. To figure it out, he threatened the Dakibai king. But the damn guy didn't reveal its true meaning even as it died. "You can't complete this universe." It was a gigantic wall that Yu Yonghyuk couldn't go past with his power, but he still instinctively understood it. "Past this wall is where I'll find the answer I've been looking for." Unfortunately, his breaking the sky swordsmanship that shattered the heavens and destroyed stars failed to break this wall. It was as if this wall didn't possess the nature of breaking in the first place. Yu Yonghyuk despaired. He came this far while losing everything, yet he couldn't go past this one wall. Your conclusion is guiding you towards a brand new existence. He needed to become stronger. He needed many more fables. He needed the force capable enough to break past this wall and go beyond it. You have become an outer god. And that was why Yu Yonghyuk had become an outer god. He now could drift along the countless world lines he had lived through, and eventually, he was no longer Yu Yonghyuk. Other gods respected him, who wandered among the universe of stories, and Dakibis from other world lines feared him. The Wennies liked him, though. One of the recorders of fear even created a title for him, too. The great schemer who dreams of journeying past the wall, the secretive plotter. 0th regression turn, 1st, 2nd, 1863rd. He aimlessly floated around all these numerous world lines and memorized the stories of his life once more. He had earned many fables along the way, but his overall power remained the same after paying for the probability of traversing through different world lines. However, he got to learn many new pieces of information that he failed to notice when he used to rely on regression only, such as the origin of all of his regressions, his sponsor, the most ancient dream. The secretive plotter wandered around again and again for the sole purpose of finding this being. Once he discovered its traces in Eden, and he also discovered the records of it within Vedas as well. But he couldn't find its actual, real body anywhere. And that was why the secretive plotter became even more convinced. He was sure that the answer to everything was beyond the final wall he encountered at the final scenario. Sadly, though, he failed to discover the method to breach that wall even after searching through all of the world lines. His hope slowly withered. His will that not even regressing for 1863 times could break was slowly becoming dimmer. He dreamed many times of falling into an endless slumber, if only he really could. If only he could find the eternal rest he'd been searching for. It was at this point that he discovered a single planet shining so brightly. The secretive plotter was quite familiar with it. The 8612th solar system, Earth, the location where the tragedies of all scenarios began. However, something was wrong. An unfamiliar sensation wrapped around this world line stabbed into his memories. Was there a regression turn like this one? And it was here that the secretive plotter witnessed an existence he had never encountered before. The secretive plotter slowly opened his eyes. He saw the Engai's forest above the cold darkness. His jet-black exhaled air dispersed within the now chilly air. It was unknown for how long he was there, but nonetheless, the K-Coma Yu Yonghyuk number 41 was next to him. You had a nightmare. Someone like you who had witnessed the conclusion still can't escape from dreaming, it seems. Well, I too am nothing more than a mere puppet, that's why. Sujut jujajut. Perhaps as the after-effects of spending an exorbitant amount of probability, thin layers of sparks danced around the entire figure of the secretive plotter. 41 quietly observed that phenomenon for a while before opening his lips. I see that the effects from the 1863rd story changing is rather considerable. Your business here. All contact from 999 has been cut off. The irises of the secretive plotter drew in deeper after hearing those words. Dark and deep light flitted in and out of his eyes as if he was reading something, before he opened his lips again. 999 hasn't died. Then, the meaning of his contact being cut off is. The secretive plotter didn't reply. 41 spoke with a voice containing a faint trace of rage. It was a mistake to send him. Send me instead. 999 is too soft. He is not as soft as you think. Faint vestiges of a fable brushed past the eyes of the secretive plotter as if he was rereading the events of the 999th regression turn. Even if it was through sheer luck, 999 is the only one besides myself to reach the edge of the conclusion. Because of his experience, I too was able to witness my conclusion as well. That reply prompted 41's expression to crumple. However, he's also the one who willingly gave up on the conclusion. Think about this. He can mess up our goal. It doesn't matter. He is also a Yu Jung-hyuk after all. The plotter's unfathomable eyes now stared at the skis of the Engai's forest. No one could tell what exactly he was thinking about. He, too, has the right to pursue the end he wishes to see. 41 quietly observed the plotter's eyes before lowering his head slowly. The secretive plotter, Yu Jung-hyuk, who had lived the longest time in all of the universes out there. No one in the star stream could understand the depths of his sorrow. If that's what you want, even if it was another Yu Jung-hyuk. Scenario maintenance will conclude in 5 minutes. The channel will reopen soon. As the message reverberated throughout the empty air, 2 Yu Jung-hyuks were still standing face to face. 999 was the first one to form a wry grin. It seems that you don't know anything, but then again, I guess it's only obvious. Don't know anything. Those words really got under Yu Jung-hyuk's skin. This bastard or that other one, they were all saying the same damn thing. Yu Jung-hyuk, who doesn't know anything. Just what the hell didn't he know? The blade of the dark heavenly demon sword faintly shifted over to Sun Wukong as if he had managed to swallow back his anger. Just spit out what you're plotting here. Why did you come? Is this Sun Wukong one of your collaborators? 999 glanced at Sun Wukong after hearing that threat and replied. He isn't an outer god, we're simply using each other. In that case, it'll be fine to kill you both. 999 then stepped up slightly as if to defend Sun Wukong and spoke. If you wish to give up on this regression turn, then go ahead. What rubbish are you talking about? Complete this Journey to the West remake with this guy. If you do, I shall teach you a way to defeat the secretive plotter. Why should I believe? Almost at the same time, blue sparks danced around 999's body. The existence pledge. Yu Jung-hyuk's eyes trembled from unrest. You said that I'll never defeat him, even if I regress hundreds of times. And I merely meant that you can't defeat him by regressing hundreds of times. 999 lightly leaped up and landed on the blade of the dark heavenly demon sword. Yu Jung-hyuk reflexively took a step back, but his mini version approached him regardless. You always thought that your life so far has been a living hell, because you've been dealing with everything all on your own. A chaotic fable instantly spread all around. Yu Jung-hyuk flinched and stared at it. It was of an eternal nightmare that a certain someone had lived through. Fable, Hellscape of Eternity, has begun its storytelling. As if it was reacting to this fable, the dark heavenly demon sword, permeating with shining light, shuddered greatly. Yu Jung-hyuk, who experienced the 999th regression turn, spoke again. How many such hells do you think exist in this world? Episode 81, A Dumpling's Reminiscence 3 Fin.